An entitled jerk of a neighbor screams at me and my dog and nearly hits us with his car after he screams at me that he doesn't want my dog on his property. But despite the fact that I was nowhere near his house, I decided to get some petty revenge by sending him a package of dog poop on his birthday. Here's what happened. To start things off, I live in an upper middle class neighborhood that is pretty vast. There are 75 or so homes built between the 70s and 90s. There is no homeowners association, but they do have a neighborhood association and a crime watch organization, but neither of which I'm a part of. We purchased the home in 2021, and everybody we've met has been really friendly for the most part. My children are teenagers, so we haven't explored much of our neighborhood. We often see other people that I assume live elsewhere park in front of my home or near it to walk our neighborhood as well. A couple years ago, we adopted a puppy, and I checked out the distance of the bordering streets of our neighborhood, and I found it was about 3 miles. So walking the outer edges of the neighborhood became my normal dog walking route. A few weeks ago, our local park was closed for renovations, so I began exploring all the connecting streets inside my neighborhood to give him new things to see and smell. And this, of course, gave me the opportunity to meet my new neighbors. I have in earbuds on walks, so it's mostly simple pleasantries and sometimes a quick conversation, and it's been largely lovely until a couple of days ago. While we're walking about in this new street that we've not been on before, as there isn't much traffic throughout it, I notice a 60-year-old man in his yard by his garage. I gave him a courtesy smile and a wave, but I noticed he was speaking to me. Taking my earbuds out, I walked towards his yard, and I asked him, "What was that?" And he replied by saying, "Keep your dog off my grass." I was a little shocked by his rudeness and tone, so I replied with a sort of giggle, and I said, "Well, he wasn't near your grass, but okay." I'm shaking my head, walking away, and louder now, he says to me, "I do not give a crap. It's my grass, and I don't want that effing thing on it." I was almost too stunned to speak, but I managed to say, "Well, I don't want strange bloated men barking orders at me, so when he does go to the bathroom on your yard, you can say something. Until then, you can go F yourself." I'm now walking fast, calling my husband, completely enraged. I was literally carrying a bag of poop in my hand because I'm not a jerk, and I pick up after my dog. I'm about 2 streets over when I see a black Suburban creeping past a stop sign, and of course, it's the guy who was yelling at me. I mean, I recognized it from his driveway. He is speeding up to me, and I think he's gonna try and run me or my dog over. We hop into someone's yard off the curb, and he speeds by and yells, "F you, you stupid bee," while giving me his fat red finger out the window. Now, at this point, I am smoking with anger. My dog is confused, but this jerk just let me know that no one is home at his house. So I circled back, and I opened my steaming bag in the center of his driveway, being careful to gauge where his tire would hit. And this was a lot, about 4 turds in total. But you know what? It simply wasn't enough because I was still incredibly angry. So I go home to look up his address. I find his name, his social media accounts, everything. And I find out right then and there that his birthday is in 2 days. I then smile because I know I'll have a special present just for him. I then called my most unhinged friend that happens to have 2 dogs, and she says she's happy to collect samples for me. At home, I do the same, and in 2 days' time, I have a right pile of dog crap of 3 dogs waiting for this guy. I then purchase a manila envelope, grab some Easter crinkle confetti paper, and some gloves to get working on his birthday present. And trust me, I'm sure to grab the envelopes with bubble wrap on the inside. I address it to him and I write "Happy Birthday" in large letters underneath, stuff it with all the dog crap I can find, and fill it just to the top with enough crinkle paper that it's hard to see exactly what's inside. I then walk it alone to his home on his birthday, and I put it in his paper box very early. Then I come back at mail time, and I wait on the nearest cross street hidden from view. Well, from my hiding spot, I see him come out directly after the mail truck, where he then grabs my manila envelope. And at this point, I think to myself, yes, I can taste the revenge on my tongue. I'm about to walk the opposite direction home, but it's then that I see him opening up the envelope. So I literally get a front row seat to all of this, and I think to myself, oh man, this is beautiful. He is halfway up his driveway when I hear him scream out, "What in the world?" followed by him screaming, "Oh my God," as he is literally trying to fling the crap from his hand. I start running because I know he was going to instinctively look around, but I am out of there, and my heart was jackhammering in my chest. I'm on a main road before I slow down to a normal walk, and I made it back home without any incident. And while this was 2 days ago, I honestly haven't quit laughing, because this guy absolutely deserved it. Oh man, you are seriously super brave for doing that. There is no way in the world I would ever take that kind of risk. Like legitimately, you went to some serious lengths to get this guy back. And sure, I think he was kind of a jerk, but this might have been a bit of overkill if you ask me. Like sure, this guy was a massive jerk and he probably deserved it, but you really put yourself at a lot of risk for doing that in the first place. But regardless, I hope you're just careful overall, because the guy you described sounds incredibly unhinged, and hopefully nothing else comes of this, because you took a very calculated risk to get this guy back. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. stories. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend is super mad at me for rejecting a fully work-from-home position that I had turned down in favor of working at the same company as him. But now I've been told that he might actually be cheating on me with someone who he has called his work wife. And at this point, I'm so blown away that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, 7 months ago, I resigned from a company that allowed me to work fully from home due to an unmatched working style. After that, I got an opportunity to work at the same company as my boyfriend, but in a completely different department and building. And I've been working there now for 3 months. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years and currently live together. So I asked him if he would commute to and from work together using his car, and I, of course, told him I'd help with gas and other expenses. And while he was reluctant at first, which is something I didn't think much about at the time, he did eventually agree. Fast forward to last month, and my previous company reached out and asked if I would be interested in returning. However, due to some miscommunication from human resources that I found really unprofessional, I ended up rejecting the offer. When I told my boyfriend, he got extremely mad. He started acting cold and distant, and he even told me I should go back to my old company so I could work from home and take care of the house. I was devastated. I tried to talk to him and ask what was wrong, but he kept distancing himself and shutting me down. What I didn't expect was his best friend, who works in the same department as him, reaching out to me to say that there's something that I should know. He told me that my boyfriend might be cheating on me with one of his coworkers. Apparently, there's a girl in his department he's really close with, and their coworkers even tease her as his work wife. His best friend told me that before I joined the company, my boyfriend used to drive this work wife home. My boyfriend told his best friend and other coworkers that I knew about it and that there was nothing going on between them, but I had no idea. I was dumbfounded. I never suspected anything. There were no signs or suspicious behavior from him, or maybe I was just being ignorant. His best friend said that he doesn't have any proof of cheating, and he told me he didn't want to stress me out or accuse his best friend without evidence, but he noticed I haven't been doing well lately due to the fight. He also said that he's been cheated on before and doesn't want to go through the same thing. He told me he had warned my boyfriend about the whole work-wife thing before, but my boyfriend just brushed it off and continued the whole work-husband-wife dynamic. I honestly don't know what to do anymore. My boyfriend is still cold and distant. If he really is cheating on me, I feel like I need to find some kind of evidence first. I really love him, but this whole situation is tearing me apart. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I think the original poster is 100% correct. If they're gonna jump to some kind of conclusion, they need evidence. Because with no evidence, this will only backfire in an awful way. Seriously, this is not something you want to play with. I really just would not go forward without any kind of proof that something's going on, or at least having some kind of discussion about it. But also, on the other side of this, I think it is super important to remember who talked to you about what's going on. This is his best friend we're talking about. This isn't someone who's like pining after you to try and like break up your relationship or anything like that. And it doesn't sound like anyone who's like super involved in your life specifically. So for them to come up to you and be like, hey, your boyfriend's acting weird and he might be cheating on you, like that's something you really should take note of and not ignore. Because there's no way this best friend would say something unless there was something actually concerning going on. An idiotic salesman ruins his sales presentation as he literally disrespects me in a way that is absolutely unacceptable, resulting in me buying from his competition in a way that he truly will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, I'm a relatively young professor with most of my colleagues about to retire, and I was hired shortly after getting my PhD almost 10 years ago, and I'm now leading a group of young researchers in the biological sciences. I also don't have the professor vibe and can pass off as one of my research staff and graduate students. Also, I don't wear semi-casuals and would opt to wearing something I find really comfortable. During the day when this story occurred, I was wearing a t-shirt, shorts, and running shoes. Now, in one of my projects, I wanted to purchase a microscope with a camera system, so I asked my staff to look for one. We've had 3 different suppliers, but we got excited with the offer of this one supplier. So my staff arranged for their visit and demo of the microscope on the day I'm not teaching at 10 o'clock in the morning. Now, I'm not a morning person, but I do have several appointments in the afternoon that day, so 10 o'clock is my only available schedule. Fast forward to the demo day and the supplier arrived 20 minutes late. When they arrived in my office, I was introduced by my staff to them, and then they introduced themselves to me with coffee and donuts. Now, I really hate people being late to their appointments with me, and I find it really disrespectful, but I brushed it off as I wanted the demo to be over soon. I said we moved to the lab where they can do the microscope demo, and when we're settled in the room, I got really confused as I was anticipating a demo, but they didn't even bring the microscope. What they brought was a sheet of paper with a price quotation of the microscope that we don't have the budget to pay for, and not even the microscope model that we intended to buy. My staff were already tensed at this point, as they can already sense my growing anger about what was happening. In any case, I still still ask several questions about the specifications and possible applications about the model that they're offering, as there might be an opportunity to purchase that model soon too. The salesperson approached me by describing the model, and then they rattled off all the details about it before ending it by saying doctor. He then blurted out, correcting himself by saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just so used to talking with doctors." Now, usually I don't really have a problem with people not addressing me properly with doctor or professor, but this guy corrected himself in such a condescending manner that even my staff were caught off guard. And I know they smelled trouble after that remark, because if you're counting, this is offense number 3. Shortly after that, I excused myself and I told them I needed to attend other matters. They handed over their business cards and I leave, but return to the lab room with my card too. Yes, it does have PhD after my name, telling them to contact me with a new quotation and send me their own photos taken under their microscope system. Well, that afternoon I felt really petty, especially for the condescension that I got, so I told my staff that the supplier has been very disrespectful with our time and for not even following through with the demo. I then told them to get the microscope system but from the other supplier. Now, from where we are at, only 2 suppliers are authorized to sell their brand, and their main office from another country said that we cannot transact with the other supplier as the first disrespectful supplier has already made contact. I then told my staff to tell the main office that I don't want to do my business with the first supplier, and that if they won't allow us to transact with the second supplier, then neither supplier will get the deal, as we are buying a different microscope camera system from a different company. Now, of course, rather than losing sales, they agree with my terms and gave the second supplier the go signal to transact with us. Now, all of us were really happy about it, as the second supplier was really professional and they were actually accommodating. They gave us a discount, the process was really smooth sailing, and yeah, they were able to lend us with 2 demo microscopes for a month, which is quite a treat, because you know what, the first guys were complete morons and they missed out on a sale that they could have easily gotten. Yeah, that's pretty stupid from that first supplier, because they could have easily gotten a really good sale for like very little effort. All they had to do was do the demo and actually show off the product, and these people would have been like, oh yeah, let's buy it from you. So good for you for getting this petty revenge, because from the sounds of it, they absolutely deserved it. My sister's upset about my stepdaughter's inheritance that she got from my mom, leaving me and the rest of the family in a weird situation, as I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my stepdaughter has been in my life ever since she was 12 years old. She is autistic and really struggles to express her emotions, as well as affection and tone. She often comes off robotic or cold, unless she actively tries otherwise. Despite her issues and not being blood, she got really close with my mother. Despite the shorter time, my mom really saw my stepdaughter as a granddaughter and as real as the other ones. And while my stepdaughter doesn't show it physically, she really loved her. My mom passed away 2 months ago and had decided to leave my stepdaughter all of her jewelry and books. However, because of her condition, my stepdaughter didn't show any emotion or hurt. With my mother supposedly favoring her over my nieces and nephew, my family got really offended by her lack of visible care. To put in polite terms, my sister thinks the jewelry should go to my nieces, since my stepdaughter clearly doesn't care according to her. While they can accept splitting the money, in my sister's eyes, the mementos should not go to someone so heartless. Obviously, not crying doesn't mean she doesn't care, but they are not seeing it that way. I thought they would calm down if I gave them time to process their grief and everything, so I've mostly just left it aside from making it clear that my stepdaughter loved her. But yesterday, my siblings let me know that she isn't allowed to come to Easter with the rest of the family, but specifically, it's her, my daughter, and I are still welcome apparently. Now, I am pretty furious about this, but I don't want to just burn it all down and cut them off. My sister has been there for me in the past, and normally she isn't like this. And so right now, I just don't know how to deal with this. I get if they don't understand her quirks, but they need to at least respect her and understand that she isn't what they think. How can I fix their misunderstanding and hurt? What should I do? Okay, first off, the way they're treating your stepdaughter is so disgusting. Like seriously, there's no excuse for this. I don't care what they're going through or how much grief they're dealing with. This is completely inappropriate behavior. Just because the stepdaughter isn't reacting the exact same way the sister's acting, it doesn't mean that they don't care. It just means they react to things differently than you do. So the fact that they want to be like, oh yeah, she can't show up for Easter and do all this other stuff, like that is so disturbing, it's not even funny. So truly, I'm not sure how you can fix this misunderstanding, but I know if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would ever show up for Easter with any of these people, especially if they're gonna be making these weird assumptions. My mom thinks that I'm an intelligent computer programmer, but in reality, I'm a criminal, and I'm debating on whether or not I should come clean, or if I should keep lying to her and still give her money. Here's what happened. About 3 years ago, right before I graduated from high school, my dad passed away. It had been a difficult time for me, my brother, and my mom. There was barely any money since my dad was the main breadwinner, and after he passed, my mom struggled a lot, and seeing that really made me want to do something about it. I had always been good with computers, course, but not to the level my mom now imagines. After my dad passed, I became desperate for money. I tried all sorts of stuff from freelancing to web development to video editing to music production, but I wasn't really making any real money to improve me or my family's situation. I looked deeper and I got more desperate, and I even tried to sell illegal substances online, if you know what I mean, since I was way too scared to do it in person. But that didn't work out either. During all that web surfing, I found some dark hat, gray hat communities and got into some stuff that was more of a gray area than anything else. This is stuff like botnets and clickbots, etc., and I would mostly receive money for services, and I made quite the amount of money. Now, a lot of this stuff is explicitly illegal, and there haven't really been a lot of people that have gotten into trouble for it, since it kind of dances between the lines of legal and illegal depending on what you're doing. It's not likely to get in trouble for it, but it's still a possibility, and I believe I can take the risk, and I'm not very paranoid about getting in trouble. The money has been great. I've been able to help my mother out a lot, but the issue is that she's gotten alarmed at the amount I'm making, and I've repeatedly lied to her that I've made this money freelancing online. I've showed her website templates and lied that I built them, and I've even now gone as far as to edit invoices of how much I got paid because I think she's getting worried. It's honestly eating me up inside having to lie to my mother this much, and hearing her tell her sisters and stuff that I'm so good with computers and I'm making clean money is just what makes me sad. So do I come clean or do I just keep on lying? Because right now I honestly don't know what to do. Honestly, I think it really would be better to try and figure out another profession, because what you're doing, as you have literally described it, is illegal. I just don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good long-term plan. And sure, for now it helped your family out in the short term, but I just don't see that as a long-term option for you or your family. Seriously, if there's even a chance that you might get arrested for this kind of thing, is it really worth putting your family and your life at risk just to get more money for your mom? And sure, there's a debate there of yeah, it is worth it, but in my opinion, I just don't think it is. So truly, I hope you're able to find a better job than this, because this sounds incredibly sketchy. My mom paid people to come hide 100 Easter eggs on my property without my permission, and now my husband's incredibly pissed off, whereas I'm just kind of used to this and I don't think it's that big of a deal. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that my mom is a narcissist, and we have had many issues since my son was born. So my husband has some very strong feelings against her, and he may be making a bigger deal out of this than it really is. I found out today that my mom hired some people to come hide 100 eggs in our front yard as a fundraiser. She only told me because she was required to give them my number so they can call me when they arrive, since our property is gated. My son is only 16 months old, and we've had many discussions about how he probably won't last too long hunting eggs, and so I'm only going to put out maybe 12 of them. We're doing 3 separate egg hunts between our house and the grandparents too. Well, my husband is furious and asked me to call her to see if she could cancel it. I called and explained that 100 eggs is a lot, that I would end up having to pick up all of them. We also don't allow him to eat candy, and we don't need 100 eggs worth of candy either. I also told her how since they will show up after bedtime Saturday, our dog will probably bark and wake our son up. She told me that we have a big yard and that 100 eggs isn't a lot, that they're also going to be leaving a basket with a note from the Easter Bunny. She then said she would call and ask them to leave less eggs, but that she wouldn't cancel it, and that she knew that this would just destroy her for doing this. And honestly, I know why my husband is so angry. My mom pushes limits and wants to do more than anyone else at holidays. She likes to be able to post on social media about how great she is, and in fact, she has spent more than $400 on our son for Easter. She didn't even ask if it was okay to set this up. We are also leaving for vacation on Monday. We will be doing Easter celebrations on Friday with my in-laws and Saturday with my family. I designated Sunday for just my husband, my son, and I to be packing for our trip. So now I will also have to clean up Easter eggs from our yard. So I get why he's mad, but I also feel like it's easier to just get over it. I will ask the people doing it on Saturday evening to just leave 15 eggs and give the rest to another family. I don't feel like it's a big enough issue to deal with her backlash if I cause a scene with her over it. And it makes me angry, but I'm used to her overstepping. This is the least of my worries with her, and one day I will cut her off and out of our lives. Okay, in my opinion, I think you're really going easy on your mom. I think your husband's 100% correct. She's overstepping boundaries and you're just letting it happen. Because think about it, this is literally not her property, it's not her kid, which is also super annoying, and she's trying to dictate this without your permission. If someone scheduled something like that for me, I would lose my mind. I would be so pissed off, it's not even funny. And I personally can understand why your husband's so pissed off as well. He literally is seeing this happen and he's like, wait, this is not normal behavior. There's no reason you should have to put up with this, and the fact that you are is just infuriating. Because this guy's probably like, wait a second, why is my wife's mom again getting involved with something else? Not to mention the fact that you're doing nothing to stop this, but instead you're deciding, oh, I'm just gonna put up with it. It's not worth the time. I'm used to this. Well, guess what? Your husband isn't. And you're just sitting there doing nothing? Like, really? So yeah, you say you know why your husband's angry, but it doesn't seem like you care at all. And just because you're used to her weird behavior does not mean that the rest of your family should have to put up with it. My entitled neighbor demands that he can park his car in a fire zone, all because he himself is a firefighter. And now my neighbors and myself are all on high alert, waiting for this jerk to park his car in the fire zone one more time, as we've all decided collectively that we are definitely going to get this guy in trouble. Here's what happened. So I've been living in this apartment complex for 5 years now. I had some ongoing issues recently with a neighbor who is, to put it lightly, an entitled jerk. He blasts music when he's home and he smokes. I mean, I can smell it in the stairway. I generally try not to say anything to my neighbors because we all have to get along, and he usually doesn't blast his music past 10 o'clock p.m., which is the quiet time, so I let it slide the few times that he does. But he has this other thing that is affecting other residents, and it is downright rude. We have a small parking lot behind the building, and there is a small driveway to get in and get out. There is plenty of parking in the complex, which houses, I guess, about 150 residents. However, the entrance and exit to this parking lot is a driveway, and you can't park there because it is a fire zone. But my neighbor downstairs is a male about 22 years old, and we'll call him Frank for the sake of the story, and Frank will often just park his car there. Many of the neighbors have been annoyed at this, as it's very narrow and it's extremely hard to go down it when a car is illegally parked on one side. There have been a couple of times when myself and others had to go onto the sidewalk just to avoid hitting his vehicle, which can be very dangerous. So last night I came home a bit late and I had to park in a different lot. And really, it was probably like not even 10 feet further of a walk for me because the rear lot that I usually go to was full and there was still plenty of parking elsewhere in the complex. Well, when I walk by, I see a car that's parked in the fire zone, so I decide to take a picture of it. About 2 hours later, another car was now parked behind it in the fire zone, so I just took another picture. Well, a neighbor tried to enter the lot, since at this point there was some parking available, and after he parked, he asked me whose cars these were. And when I told him that I really wasn't sure whose cars these were, he was very upset because he had to get on the other side to avoid hitting them. Now, I tried to call the towing number that is on posted signs telling us that we would be towed if we parked in certain spots. I then knocked on my neighbor's door to ask who the car belongs to, and this guy said it was his guests, and he casually mentioned that he told them to park there. I explained that they needed to move their cars as they were blocking traffic, and thankfully they did exactly that. Well, this next morning I stopped by the leasing office after getting some advice to do so, and explained that this wasn't the first time it happened, but it was the first time I was speaking up about it, and other neighbors had this issue with Frank. This was a fact. I mean, I take walks throughout the complex often, and I'm generally very friendly with all of my neighbors, so we have talked about all of this before. The head of maintenance was there and told me that if I had any issues, I should call the emergency number for after hours and tell them to get the tech on duty to call me, and said that the head of maintenance said to call the towing company directly, mostly because they have his private direct line and they will have his cars towed. Well, at about 4:30 p.m. today, my neighbor came knocking on my door. I opened it just a little bit and we chatted, and he told me that he didn't appreciate how I insulted his guests by calling them idiots. Now, I didn't recall saying that, but maybe I did. But I did explain to Frank that because I have a neurological disorder and because it rained yesterday, I was in a lot of pain. So while I don't recall saying that, I may have said it, so I just went ahead and apologized for it just to be sure. This guy then went on and on about how he was a firefighter and how he would know if there was a fire going on and how he would then move his car. I tried to explain to him that regardless, he can't just park in the fire zone, that there's over 100 people in this complex and there is plenty of parking, and we all have our own situations that don't justify parking in the fire zone. He ranted about how much he pays in rent, and I just told him, well, guess what? We all pay rent. For example, I have a neurological disorder, and the guy across the hall from me is a military veteran. There's even elderly people in the complex, and when he parks there, it blocks the traffic for literally everybody. He then basically told me that he knows the cops in the town, as if that was supposed to mean anything to me. So I advised him that next time, I'm just gonna have his cars towed. He then pouted and said he was not gonna park there anymore, so I don't have to worry about anything. Well, needless to say, I was shook up after this, so after I calmed down, I went across the hall call and I asked my neighbor if he overheard the conversation at all. Well, thankfully he did and told me that he would let the office know as well that he himself will also call the cops if Frank ever parks his car in the fire zone again. I also went downstairs to see my other neighbor and he had heard Frank as well and told me that he would also speak with the property manager office in the morning as well. I then texted my very close childhood friend and I told him about the situation with Frank flaunting his status as a firefighter as some kind of like free pass. And he basically reassured me that what Frank did was incredibly wrong and very unprofessional. And I honestly have to agree because you would assume that someone like this would definitely know better. Yeah, I'm pretty sure what Frank is doing is incredibly illegal. Just because you're a firefighter doesn't mean that any fire zone is somehow your personal parking spot. Like seriously, what is going on here? That is such an insane excuse, it's not even funny. Like this guy is already blocking traffic and he is seriously trying to use his status as a firefighter as some kind of excuse to just be able to do whatever he wants. And that is definitely not the case. Like eventually this guy's gonna have his car towed and he's probably gonna lose his job if he keeps up acting this way. So hopefully you or your neighbors are able to catch this guy in the act so that karma can finally come this guy's way. Because the way this guy is acting is super entitled. And just because he's a firefighter doesn't mean that he can park his cars in a fire zone. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled ex threatens to take away my cats after we choose to break up with each other. So I decided to get some revenge by costing him $80,000 when he was trying to sell the house that we bought together. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at someone in my life. Here's what happened. So early into my teens, I tumbled into a deep depression and struggled for a long time. Around 8 years ago, after I broke through my depression, thanks to therapy and medication, I also figured out that I am transgender. Fast forward half a year and I met my now ex. Let's just call him X for the sake of the story. Within the first week of dating, I poured everything out. I told X I wasn't ready to socially transition at all. Mind you, I only recently got a decent paying job and I still live with my parents. But my ex seemed very supportive and assured me they have no problem whatsoever with me being who I am. And so 4 years passed when we finally decided to buy a house together. X's parents, however, were loaded and they made a nice donation to X by splitting up their savings between siblings when we told them about our plans. At this point, we also discussed that if things were to go sideways, we would just part ways in a friendly manner and split everything back to each other's original investment. So we made some offers and ended up buying a new place in between our two places of work. Since I had a car, commuting for me was easy, but for X it was more difficult. They had to take public transport every day 1 hour both ways. Eventually, we adopted 2 cats as we were both animal people and COVID had just hit. And we did this so I wouldn't feel so lonely when working from home while X was working on site. However, the high I was riding of finally being independent and being able to live my own life was very short-lived. You see, my job requires me to be on call for several days of the month, and that would usually be 7 days, but it can be up to 14 days if a colleague is sick. My phone would ring in the middle of the night, waking us both up. We never really argued before, but I recall this as the breaking moment. My ex started acting in a way that I'd already seen before in my parental home. In situations like this, I learned that agreeing is usually the quickest way to end confrontation, and so I slept on the couch not even a month after moving into my own house. Things escalated from there, and after a few more months, I was doing all the work around the home, and I was the only one caring for the cats. If I didn't do it, nobody would ever do it. And besides that, I wasn't free to be who I wanted. I received mean comments when I did something gender affirming, like getting a new haircut or something like that, and as a side note, that was at a point when I was not ready to come out yet. So I created an entire plan and timeline for myself. During the course of 2022, my ex did their best to try and keep me down, but I simply wouldn't let them. At some point, my ex decided it would be easier to give up. We had a talk where we agreed we'd mutually break up and then divide everything fairly. Now, I had every intention to keep the house, as my cats had gotten used to it, and I made some friends in the area, and my work was relatively close. Well, my ex had no intentions to keep the house, and we went on with the assumption that I would keep the house. One evening, somewhere in November of last year, we had an agreement over the money that I'd have to pay them. It started small, as my ex had listed a broken vacuum cleaner on the list of items, and I started asking questions questions if we could just scrap it. The argument evolved, and then my ex threatened to take my cats from me as part of the deal. But this was a hill I was ready to die on, because nobody is ever gonna threaten to take away my cats. I stopped arguing and started calling a friend, as I needed some kind of support. But my ex knocked my phone out of my hands, picked up their phone and called their parents and put them on speakerphone. Then the words that my ex spoke will haunt me honestly for the rest of my life. They outed me for being transgender. Now, my first instinct is something that I won't share, but I think you can imagine how I felt. After calling a helpline, I calmed down and I gathered my courage. And I called up everybody I could think of and I told them exactly what's going on, because I was not gonna let my ex win this one. An hour after X's initial phone call, their dad showed up and started threatening lawyers and spouting things like I was mentally ill and that I would never be the gender that I wanted to be, and that they would do whatever it cost to get the house from me or just try to leave me with as little as possible. Fast forward a week or so, and my ex sent over a new version of the proposed financial resolution, and the amount that I had to pay my ex was increased by a significant amount. I wanted this to be over quickly, so I just agreed as long as my ex would cover the costs of the notary, as their amount was the maximum I could borrow from the bank, which is something they thankfully did not know. Well, my ex did not agree and ended up hiking the price up again, stating that if I don't agree, the price will just continue to go up. My ex made an entire Excel spreadsheet detailing their investment as well as mine. What I noticed was in the Excel spreadsheet, everything was tied together. If my ex increased their price, the price to buy me out was also hiked up as well. And that's when I realized I had them right where I wanted them. You see, they were blindsided and thought I would do anything to not move to my parents. I argued back and forth and played dumb at one point, just to drive the price up. In fact, in an email, I stated that my ex forgot to calculate how much more the house was worth, especially since it's been 2 years, resulting in the price being increased by 20%. And as per usual, my ex copy-pasted their calculations and said to me, "This is the price you will pay me," or "This is the price I pay you." And that's when I decided I'm gonna take my chance. I then agreed to let the ex buy me out of the amount specified, and in my reply also stated that all previous negotiations of who pays the notary would also be valid. I then ended my email by saying the following: I don't have to remind you that an agreement over email is just as valid as a contract. I then pushed them to contact a notary within a reasonable time, or I would seek legal counsel to force them to pay my share. Well, fast forward 2 weeks, and I received a call from the notary that they were working on the deed and they needed my details. And approximately a month later, it would be ready to sign. I double-checked the numbers and it was all there. And shortly after, I signed the paperwork. Now, the reason why I'm posting this now instead of at the end of 2022 is because, like I said, my ex didn't want to keep the house, and it went up for sale immediately, approximately $40,000 above market value. I mean, I had the house favorited and checked periodically, and every so often it would drop in price and receive the new sticker from the website I was checking on. It dropped approximately $60,000 before yesterday in total, and that's when it was finally sold. I calculated the damages based on their handy Excel spreadsheet, and if we assume the initial fair split like we agreed on 3 to 4 years ago, then my ex lost about $40,000 of their own investment, not only in buying me out, but also notary costs as well as taxes and many other things. But if we assume the split I initially agreed on to get it over with, my ex lost about $80,000. I am now living my life to the fullest with wonderful friends and an amazing partner who is truly supportive of my life. And ever since I learned a hard lesson, I bought a new place for myself funded by my ex, and I will never share ownership of my house ever again. Yeah, your ex is an awful person. Seriously, I can't believe they would out you like that before you are ready to come out yourself. I legitimately can only imagine how panicked and how scared you must have felt. There are plenty of people in my life who are transgender who are not completely open about that in the public, and they're simply not ready to make that step in their life. So if there's ever been evidence of someone being an awful person, just look at the way the ex treated the original poster. I mean, the fact that they did that, as well as the way they treated you when trying to sell that house, overall is just so unacceptable. But thankfully, this all worked out in your favor, even though I'm sure this was a really difficult situation, and you definitely did not deserve to be treated in the way that you were. Overall, I'm just really happy to see that things kind of worked out for you in some kind of way, and hopefully you never have to deal with anyone like that ever again. An entitled customer makes my life a living nightmare, constantly complaining about me being his server, as well as straight up making up lies about how I served his family. And at this point, I'm so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So this story is a long one, but I honestly still feel all the anxiety, rage, and nervousness and sadness I felt then. And this is every time I think about this event. So with that in mind, let's get started. About 20 years ago, I took a job waitressing at a nice local seafood restaurant while going to college. Being the newest and youngest waitress on staff, I was stuck working all the terrible shifts, including Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, and New Year's Eve that year. And on Christmas Eve, I had a table straight from the depths of Hades. It was an 8-top, consisting of a mom and dad, an ancient grandma in a wheelchair, maybe an aunt and uncle, and a couple of older kids. And my only interaction the entire time was with the dad. He started out by ordering a bottle of wine for the table. I retrieved the glasses and the wine and presented the bottle to him. Before I could start opening the bottle, the dad inspected every single wine glass and started berating me loudly about how the glasses smelled like cigarette smoke and that he demanded clean glasses. Well, I took the glasses, ran them through the bar glass carousel washer, and then I brought them back out. But apparently this wasn't good enough. He claimed he could still see the smoke, and now he saw water spots on the glasses. So he demanded that they needed to be hand washed. When I could finally produce wine glasses clean enough for him, I went ahead and I opened the bottle of wine at the table. Or at least I tried to. I was shaking from nerves dealing with this guy and completely mangled the cork right in front of the whole table. I removed the cork and presented it to him, which he ripped right out of my hand and it threw out onto the floor. He then demanded a new bottle, so I had my manager bring him a new one and open it for him. And of course, everything was perfect when the manager was there. I was able to placate them with baskets of warm bread and an appetizer for the table, and everything seemed to be going fine after they ordered and while they waited for their food. Their food came out quickly and I handed out their meals. In a hurry, I grabbed the second to last plate of food off the tray, not paying attention to where the last plate was positioned. This caused the plate to flip the tray off the stand and shatter on the floor. And as I was cleaning up the mess, the dad yelled at me, telling me that I was useless. And when he said that, I was practically in tears. Thankfully, the meal I dropped was the fried seafood platter, which was the easiest thing to refire. You just toss a bunch of seafood in the deep fryer and throw it on a plate. The replacement meal was brought out within minutes, and when I checked in with the table, everyone was enjoying their meal. I thought I could finally take a deep breath and relax. And when I asked if they wanted more coffee or dessert after their meal, the dad demanded to speak with the manager. The manager talked to them and came back telling me all the complaints the man had about me specifically. He said he knew the guy was full of garbage, but had to give him discounts anyways because he complained. I took the discounter receipt to the man, and he actually made me stand next to him while he read through the bill line by line and loudly complaining that he needed to make sure he was compensated for putting up with such horrible service. Eventually, they paid and then they left, and I spent the rest of my Christmas Eve so emotionally drained, I wanted to curl up in a ball and just cry. About 3 weeks later, my manager received a letter from that guy. In big, bold red letters at the top of the page, he wrote the words, "Big fish server ruins family Christmas." And in this 2-page letter, he proceeded to complain about every single thing I supposedly did wrong. Now, some of it was true, like having to wash the bar glasses, as well as breaking the wine cork. But the other things were just blatant lies. Like apparently, I'd been belligerent to his wheelchair-bound mother, or I was swearing at the people at the table. According to him, I was some foul-mouthed diner waitress who was throwing food at this guy. The manager laughed and posted the letter in the kitchen for everybody to see. He apologized to me, letting me know that he wouldn't write me up for such an outrageous complaint, but he did have to send this guy some gift certificates since he wrote the letter in the first place. I could not believe for a second that my manager was rewarding his horrible behavior and obvious lies, but they always did that and called it customer service. I mean, if I wrote a letter about the customer, I would say, "Big jerk customer ruined big fish server's Christmas." Thankfully, I never saw this guy again, but if he used those certificates, I hope that he choked on whatever he ate. Yeah, that guy's a massive jerk. I can't stand when customers act this way, and they not only pretend like they're the most important person in the room, but they also act like the server did all these horrible things wrong. I have been on the receiving end of that, and trust me, it's not fun if you haven't experienced it. It literally makes you question your own sanity. Like, here you are trying to give the best customer service possible, and then one bad apple comes in there and says, nope, I'm gonna ruin your night. And this is all over things that were legitimately not intentional at all. Like, sure, you dropped some food that had to be refired, but you got it out to him really quick and it wasn't that big of a deal. And sure, the wine glasses weren't up to this guy's standards, but that's not your fault. It's not like you washed the dishes wrong. Just because you're the one bringing it out doesn't mean it falls directly on you. And when it comes to the manager, I'm honestly so disgusted by this. They claim that this guy and his comments are completely wrong, but then they reward his comments by giving him gift certificates. Like, that is so counterintuitive to a healthy work environment, it's not even funny. If you really do believe that this guy's full of garbage, then you wouldn't reward his awful behavior just for the sake of having another customer come back. Like, if that was my restaurant, I would not want this guy anywhere near my servers ever again. He very clearly just wanted to ruin somebody's night, and he found this one server that was trying to help him out and decided, I'm gonna make you miserable. And the fact that this guy wrote in some kind of letter to complain about the server, in my opinion, is so insane. Not to mention that he packed his letter full of lies about the server, claiming that they were like belligerent to their mother or something like that. Honestly, this is such outrageous behavior, and I just don't think it's smart to encourage that or somehow reward it. Because in my opinion, that guy should not have been welcomed back, and by giving him gift certificates, you're basically saying that his false accusations are going to be rewarded. My entitled sister-in-law stole 2,000 euros from me and my husband, and when we confront her demanding that she pay us back the money she took, she called us cruel and selfish for wanting it back, and eventually turned my entire extended family against me and my husband. Here's what happened. So to start things out, my sister-in-law and her lazy husband are constantly broke and just keep on whining about it. For more than 10 years, they have been coming crawling to my family with sob stories and expecting their bills to be paid. Their family debts are already in the 6 figures mark, and my sister-in-law is a physiotherapist, and her husband is someone who, because of his skin color and age, thinks he doesn't have to apply for a job because he wouldn't get one anyways. When asked why she and her husband wouldn't work, my sister-in-law always replies that she has back pain and her husband has bad knees, is over 50 and a person of color, and there are no jobs for them, which is absolutely not true, as I was personally working in a job agency at the time, and I suggested lots of suitable jobs for him, which he didn't apply for because the hourly wage of 20 euros an hour was supposedly too low. Since this resulted in a full-time monthly salary of 3,200 euros before tax, there was no argument for getting up from the couch for him. Well, it's now the summer. My sister-in-law's birthday's coming up, and we're having a family barbecue together. My sister-in-law calls us all together and makes a speech. She states that she would like to buy a car and wants 8,000 euros just so she can do that. And then she wants another 3,000 euros for a luxury electric massage mat. And apparently the money would also be paid back this time. We ask her why she needs a car and how she's gonna pay for the maintenance, the taxes, the gas, and repair costs of the car. My sister-in-law said, my husband is American and he doesn't want to travel by public transportation and is used to driving around. And my husband needs a car to visit his friends as traveling by public transport was unbearable for him and he doesn't feel comfortable. Well, in response to further questions about how they're going to finance the car outside of the purchase cost without any kind of money or job, my sister-in-law gets really snappy and starts insulting all of us. She said that we were all being very mean to her and just wanted to put her down with our questions and show her that she was less than us and that she had offered to pay the money back. This all ends with my entitled sister-in-law bursting into tears and running into the house. Since I had to go into the house myself, I don't hear my sister-in-law crying, which is honestly to be expected, but rather she's talking on her phone to her husband, who did not attend the barbecue. I can hear my sister-in-law complaining to him that all of us were tormenting her. We were patronizing her and talking down to her, and eventually my sister-in-law comes back into the garden with a smug smile on her face, puts her phone on speaker, and holds it out to us. Well, my brother-in-law yells out that we should watch out because he's going to mess all of us up. He then calls us a jerk for talking about his wife behind his back and how we made his wife cry. He then exclaimed that he hates us and then said a few curse words. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law is there the whole time with a satisfied grin on her face. Fast forward and it's now my sister-in-law's birthday, and we, the doormats that we were back then, want to fulfill my sister-in-law's heart's desire of having a car by giving her a car sharing deal of 100 euros. Now, of course, no good deed goes unpunished, because we give her the 100 euro deposit, which she can then use. It is in her name and only she is insured. So we explain everything to her, and eventually she understands and agrees to abide by the contract. She also promises that she will pay the cost incurred from her account once the 100 euros had been debited, and everything was supposed to be fine. Well, of course, my sister-in-law lied and didn't change the account details, and of course let her deadbeat husband drive. Within just a few months, the bill was amounting to 2,000 euros. When I noticed this gap in our account, I immediately canceled access to our account and confronted my sister-in-law. She ignores me, didn't respond to my calls, text messages, or emails, but then complains to my husband about me, that his mean and nasty wife who doesn't begrudge them the poor people their car. My piece of garbage sister-in-law said the following: "I have not been able to sleep for 3 nights because of your wife, dear brother. She wants her money back, and that is so outrageous." Eventually, her piece of garbage husband replies to my email a few weeks later and calls me several swear words as well as a witch, and that he's going to physically mess me up so that I can finally shut up and stop bothering him and his wife about money. And apparently, I also need therapeutic help because according to them, I've gone crazy. He keeps threatening me that I'll soon get a few punches if I don't finally shut up. It finally goes too far when this aggressive jerk turns up at our house and tries to intercept and intimidate me so that I stay quiet. Now, did I mention that this piece of garbage has already had several charges as well as many court cases for violent confrontations? So I report him to the police, only to have the rest of the family against me, berating me as to why I would mess with him. They would say stuff like, "Don't poke the bear," and then I'm told that I'm to blame for the whole mess and that me and my husband have enough money and that we should let the poor relatives have it. My mother-in-law even goes so far that she would go begging from the family so that we greedy people would get our money back so that we can finally stop annoying everybody. Now, of course, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law don't pay anything back, nor do they even begin to apologize. Like, we literally get nothing from them. But they are smear campaigning us on full throttle. My husband's family rolls their eyes at me when I bring up the subject and keep on telling me that it's my fault and that I overreacted with my complaint. I'm even told that my reaction was extremely over the top and that I'm actually the jerk in this situation. I'm getting rebuked from my family-in-law from left, right, above, and below. It ends with my sister-in-law and brother-in-law turning up at my father-in-law's birthday party a couple of months later and making a massive scene, saying that they are mistreated and bullied in the family and that we would all soon see where that leads, which is just another famous threat from my stupid brother-in-law. My brother-in-law then attacks all the men in the family at this event and threatens them with physical violence and tries to provoke my husband in particular to get into some kind of physical altercation. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law shouts at me that I can be held personally responsible for the fact that the family is now destroyed and everything is apparently in shambles. She mockingly asks me if I'm proud of my destructive work. My brother-in-law storms up to me shortly afterwards and shouts that he would do anything to protect his family and that he might get physical with me as well. So you know what? I called the police. And when we finally heard the police siren coming around the corner, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law fled the scene. Meanwhile, and after 3 long years, we got the money back from my mother-in-law as she had condescendingly offered to go begging so that we would stop nagging about the money. She was grumbling, kicking, and screaming, but we now have the stolen money back from her. So she saved her grown-up, unreliable daughter's rear end. My thieving sister-in-law recently came scratching at our door again to announce that she had severe depression because of the way that we had treated her. Apparently, there was so much negativity coming from me personally that she needed to go to a very special clinic to get treatment for her depression. But I told her to get lost and that she should tell her sob stories to somebody else. My husband also told her that he no longer had time for her. Now, I can understand that the family-in-law felt it was ridiculous and not worth mentioning that we had been robbed of 2,000 euros. I mean, previously, my sister-in-law had stolen a whopping 20,000 euros from her own daughter, and this was her daughter's college fund. When the daughter asked her mother where the money was, she just shrugged her shoulders and said, "I had to pay the bills." I am now, as of today, no contact with my in-laws, and my husband is very low contact. I'm finally free of these pests, and unfortunately, I have to say that my husband's family, with the exception of him, are all absolute rubbish. They cover up intra-family thefts, they tolerate verbal, physical, and and emotionally awful things going on in their lives, and they practice perpetrator-victim reversal, and I will never sit down at the same table with them ever again. Man, I'm so glad to see that you went no contact with your in-laws, because those people sound crazy. How on earth could anybody seriously act like that and think that you're the problem in the family? Like, this sister-in-law stole $20,000 from her daughter. Like, she just straight up took it and said, oh, I gotta pay the bills. And the rest of the family is okay with this somehow? Like, seriously, what is going on here? Like, reading through this, it felt like I was in opposite world. Like, who in their right mind would try and blame the original poster for anything? It simply doesn't make sense, and in my opinion, it is so uncalled for. So I really hope you never have to deal with these people ever again. They sound like terrible people, and hopefully they stay out of you and your husband's life. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boss playfully tells me that I'm grounded and that I need to stay in the corner. And as a result of me maliciously complying, me, my boss, as well as the guests of the theme park I was working at, all had the biggest laugh we've ever had in our life. And I still look back on that memory with a lot of fondness, as it truly was a lot of fun. Here's what happened. Years ago, I was a photographer at a major theme park and worked with characters on an almost daily basis. Our famous character is a mouse that owns the whole park. Everyone who worked there either referred to him as Boss or Mr. Mouse around the guests. For the purpose of this post, I'll refer to him as Boss. One morning, I was assigned to work with the boss. He was in a mischievous mood and being an overall goofball. I enjoyed this, and so did our guests and character attendants. One of his favorite things to do when he was in a mischievous mood was to try to pass me the autograph books that he had signed, conveniently ignoring the fact that I had my hands full with a camera. As I went to take them, he dropped them and run away, making a laughing motion. So we're with this family, and Boss does his usual pass the autograph books to the photographer stunt. He holds them out expectantly, and I said, I'd love to, boss, but you know I don't know my ABCs. At this point, the boss drops the books, takes my hand, moves me to a corner, and points to the floor, telling me to stay like a naughty child. So that's when I decided to maliciously comply. I said to him, okay, I guess I'm grounded, and I said that with a pout. Everyone at this point is howling with laughter, even our head manager who had stepped in to watch. So boss continues his interaction with the family, and now, at the end of the session, we have the family pose with the character. So boss gets together with everybody and poses in a really funny manner, except there's one big problem. There's no photographer to take the picture. After a moment, the boss motions to the family to wait and stomps over to my corner. I'm fighting back a grin at this point as he turns me around, points to my camera, and then held his hands up as if to say, what gives? I then look at him with a sweet, innocent smile, and I say, boss, you told me I'm grounded, remember? It's at this point my head manager pipes in by saying, that you did, Mr. Mouse. Boss playfully drags me back to my spot and poses again. We get the photo and send the family on their way. My head manager stepped out with them and offered to send them through again to get more pictures because I didn't take that many on account of me being grounded. The family accepted, although the dad, who had tears in his eyes at this point, said that it was the hardest he's laughed in a long time. And to this day, this memory still brings a smile to my face. Well, that was a surprisingly wholesome story. I honestly did not expect that. This is honestly exactly how you want your work environment. You have coworkers that you can have fun with, you're not taking yourself super seriously, and everyone's able to laugh at the end of the day. Like, that sounds like that would be a really fun place to work at. So honestly, good for the original poster for having such a fun place to work at, because getting to goof off like that at work really is like a morale boost. And it's really cool to see that jobs like this really do exist. Am I the jerk for refusing to change my first name just so I could work at my father-in-law's company? Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm a 20-year-old female and I have an unusual name. It's one of those hated names that people think are their parents being a tryhard or making their kids' lives harder instead of picking a real name. Think of something like Princess or Ocean or Moon. Now, here's the thing. I love my name, and I was never bullied for my name in school, and I have a very good job, so it never really held me back there. I married my husband while we were still in college, and that's when I met his parents. They were nice. They were kind of taken aback by my name when we first met, but still, they were nice. We had no issues back then. But recently, my father-in-law has mentioned how much he would love to have me work for him. I thought it was a very sweet thing to say, but he started getting more serious about it after a few weeks. He ended up asking if I would actually be interested, and I said that it would depend on certain factors, but it would be nice to work for the family business. He didn't say anything else right away, but then a couple of days later, he told me he was serious about wanting me to work there, but I would need to change my name to something less embarrassing because the negative impact on his business was not something he was willing to risk, and a ridiculous name is a sure way to harm your relationship with important business contacts. Now, here's the thing. I told him I understand if he felt my name could not fit in with his business, but I would not change my name, so we should just forget the offer. Well, for the second time when talking to him, he was taken aback. Another couple of days passed, and my husband told his dad he was awful for offering me a job with those conditions, like getting my name changed as being attached to it. Then, my mother-in-law told me it was a little too hasty to refuse without thinking it over. I told her that the thing is, I love my name, and I don't want to change it just for a job. My father-in-law is offended that I wasn't willing to consider it. He told me it was an amazing place to work, which I do know. I mean, I've heard great things from the employees, and I should be willing to make small adjustments so I can be more professional presenting in the business world. But I told him I wasn't, and his attitude about my refusal to change my name made me glad I had not agreed to work for him. Now my father-in-law and my mother-in-law feel I should have been more willing to compromise my own name. I think this is crazy, and my husband agrees with me and told his parents that they were crazy, but they are not happy with me. So now I need to know, am I the jerk for refusing to change my first name just to work at my father-in-law's company? No, your father-in-law is insane. He is absolutely the jerk in this situation. If his business and place of employment really is so good, then why on earth would you force somebody to change their name just so they can work there? Clearly, it's not that good if you have to go to the court system and be like, hey, let me change my name just for my job. Like, seriously, that is insane to me. Like, if I can't use my own real name at my job, then there's no way I'm going to be willing to work at a place like that. And you know what? This isn't some kind of like small adjustment. This feels way too much, and it honestly seems like he's trying to change your name for manipulative reasons. And it feels like it stems back to him being embarrassed by it or something like that. So honestly, good for you for turning this guy down. The way he was acting was super creepy, and if I was in your shoes, I would not want to change my name for a second just to work at some job. Today, I messed up by misunderstanding my CEO and thinking that he was about to buy me a new car as some kind of reward for my work at our job. But now I'm completely humiliated and so embarrassed, as he very bluntly corrected himself, leaving me feeling totally humiliated in the process. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, I work for a company that buys company cars from a particular dealership. Each company car has the same dealer logo, and I have worked for this company for just over a year. Now, for the situation at hand, I am a one-person marketing and advertising department at a small family-run company that has been expanding, and I have been rewarded for advancements in our field. I often interface one-on-one with the CEO who is good at advertising and who knows exactly what he wants for our most important ads. It can be difficult to balance my own interests with an industry that I am not as familiar with, so I appreciate the input. So I'm in the CEO's office while strategizing our latest ad when he asked if my car is being fixed. The car in question ran into some trouble while traveling to a company event, so it shows that he cares when he asked me that. I let him know that the local shop is working on it and I should know what is going on next week. I purchased the vehicle from this company and it is very recognizable in the field. The CEO follows up by saying, "Aren't you due for a new car?" owing to the fact that I drive an outdated car, to which I responded by saying, "Well, of course I am." Now, I am a tech-focused person, and he can obviously see that I would rather have a car that has the latest bells and whistles. He thought about it for a second and responded by saying, "You're thinking about a brand new car, right?" To which I responded by saying, "Yes, absolutely." And this is the usual kind of banter for our field and our kind of work. He thought for a moment and followed up by saying, "Would you like me to take you to the dealership that we get all of our company cars from?" And at this point, I lost my mind, and I emphatically said, "Absolutely." Well, he paused for a few moments before saying, "I wouldn't be buying you a new car, but I could definitely work out a deal for you." And to say that I was crushed in this moment would undersell it entirely. I can't even imagine how red my face must have looked. It has always been obvious that I was embarrassed due to my red face, and one of my coworkers was also in the room. Thankfully, I trust this coworker, or else I would be mortified about being bullied about this situation. I kept my facial expressions as stoic as possible and made a comment that my wife would destroy me if I tried to purchase a new car. It went about as well as you could expect it as I faded back into the work at hand. I couldn't believe how embarrassed I was. I drive a car that is outdated because that's what I could afford to survive this job. I don't think the CEO thought anything of it, and I'm not trying to take it personally, but it really sucks that for a moment I thought I was being being recognized for my work, and instead I was misreading the situation completely. And as a man, it was honestly hard not to cry on my drive back from work. Yeah, that's a really funny situation to be stuck in. Here you are at a job that you've been working at for a while now, and you're used to the fact that you get some kind of like advancement or some kind of like reward for doing good in your field. So when the CEO starts talking the way that they were, honestly, I think anyone could have been fooled by the way he was talking. Like, this guy was really leading the conversation. Like, let's be honest for a second. He really made it seem like he was going to take you to this car dealership and he was going to buy you a new car as some kind of reward for doing such a good job. Like, I know if I was in your shoes, I might have assumed that something like that was in the works right at that moment. Like, based on the way the CEO was talking to you, he really made it seem like he was about to drop some big surprise on you. And I don't think that's your fault at all. Like, as the CEO of a company like this, I'm sure you should probably be careful with the way you talk to people below you. What he probably thought was like innocent banter to be like, oh, how's your car going? Eventually led to him being like, ooh, let's go to the car dealership together. Like, if he seriously doesn't think he was hinting at, oh, I'm gonna buy you a car, then this guy is completely clueless or he's crazy. Now, when it comes to you feeling embarrassed in any kind of way, I think you're being way too hard on yourself, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, sure, the CEO saw your enthusiasm and he probably realized, oh wait, hold on, I'm not actually gonna buy you a car. And I don't think that's a knock at you in any kind of way. It was maybe him catching himself and realizing, oh no, wait a second, what have I done? So in my opinion, I don't think you should feel bad about this. I don't think you getting excited at the leading statements that the CEO was making in any kind of way is your fault in the slightest, because this guy really did make it sound like he was gonna buy you a car. And that blame falls squarely on the CEO's shoulders and not yours. An entitled Karen demands that I give the final exam answers to her child just so he can pass my class. But when I tell her no, she threatens to spread false rumors about me, as well as to try and get me kicked out of college. And I've honestly never been more blown away by an entitled Karen's actions in my life. Here's what happened. So for a bit of context, I'm soon graduating college, but where I live, we need to complete what is referred to as social service hours. And you basically work in a program related to your major. And for mine, I was helping in a program to teach English for free to students. Since this program was free and technically we weren't actually grading the students, many sometimes wouldn't even pay attention, especially since classes were online. I tried making my class as entertaining as I could. It was small and it only had 12 students. Now, mind you, I was just one of the college students that were participating in this program as teachers. This program was not created by my college, and we were given all teaching materials, but the last test was actually going to be in person with the people who organized the program in the first place. The surprise for the students came when they were told for the last test, in order to get the diploma that proved they completed the English program, they were going to be graded and they needed at least 50 out of the 100 students to pass. So I informed the students, and for the most part, most of the teenagers from 15 to 17 years old were doing fine. We had been working together for about 16 weeks by now, but out of my class of 12, there was this student we had some difficulties with, and we'll just call him Mike for the sake of the story. Mike is not his real name. Now, he is not a bad kid, but since the beginning, Mike made it clear that he didn't want to learn English. He wanted to learn French. And later on, after what happened with his mother, I even learned that at one point he almost got a scholarship to study in a school that teaches French as a second language. But his mom sent him to a smaller school that is well known for teaching English, but he was struggling, so that's why he was in this class. After the announcement that the last test was going to be graded, I told the class that if they would like, we could do some extra sessions. Now, this was something extra that I offered, not from the program at all, mostly because I had the free time and the fact that they were going to be graded for the program. Out of the 12 students, 11 joined the extra classes, and I guess you might have an idea about who did not join us. But now we were 2 weeks away from the final test when I first started getting contacted by Mike's mother, who is the Karen of this story. Now, at first she seemed like a concerned mother, but her mask soon slipped away, and by now the extra classes I had given had finally stopped because I no longer had the extra time because of my job. I told her as such, and she absolutely went nuts, saying how I needed to find the time and teach her son. And she was screaming all of this at me over the phone. And yes, since the classes were online, the parents had my phone number because we communicated with them through WhatsApp. Now, I really tried to be reasonable and said that if they could come up with the topics that he needed help with, I will try to help him. And also with the condition that there is a parent present. Because you know what? I didn't want any misunderstandings or someone thinking that we didn't study. Fast forward to the extra classes, and Mike would connect and his aunt was always in the background. But he was trying to fit almost 16 weeks worth of lessons in less than 2 weeks. By the time it was 1 week before the exam is right when I started receiving the calls from the entitled Karen. I couldn't answer most of them because I was working, but apparently that ticked her off even more because she started leaving me messages accusing me of ignoring her. And in the end, in the space of a day, she called me 24 times while I was on my job. After I finished my shift, I called her back because I thought something bad had happened. But nope, instead she just started yelling at me. Then she started saying that I was a bad teacher, and then she demanded that I just share the final test answers because Mike needed to have that diploma. Now, I tried to tell her that I didn't have the test results, and even if I did, obviously I couldn't just share them. But it's right then that Karen went crazier and started saying how she was going to make sure I got expelled from college because I was ruining her son's future. She also started saying how she was going to tell everyone that I was asking her son for extra classes just so I could try and spend time with him. But thankfully, my college director and the teacher in charge of connecting us with the people from the project knew about these extra classes and even encouraged us to give them if we had free time. In the end, I hung up on her, but I couldn't block her just yet because any news that we got, we had to share that with the parents, and that was done through text messaging. In the end, I took a screenshot of her threats and sent them to my teacher in charge and the person from the program I communicated with. This entitled Karen was given a stern talking to and was told that the day of the exam, she was not allowed to take her son. Someone else had to take him to the place of the exam, and also her son was going to get observed more often just to ensure that he wasn't cheating. I then had to endure the Karen bothering me for the rest of the week because she still was the main contact for Mike, even after everything that went down. So I was so happy to finally block her after giving the last instructions for the day that they were having the exam, which basically they were divided into groups and a teacher from the program took care of them from there. Later on, I found out from this teacher that took care of my former students that the Karen did try to spread rumors that I was a bad teacher and a creep. But since the other students did quite well in my classes, none of the other parents complained and actually were on my side. She also apparently tried to get in contact with my college to complain, but that was also completely shot down. And I honestly feel so sorry for Mike because his mom is absolutely an entitled Karen. Yeah, Mike's mom sounds really crazy. First of all, he didn't even want to learn English in the first place. Like, this kid clearly has a passion for the French language and he wanted to go to a school specifically for that, but his mom got in the way and destroyed that aspiration of his. Which honestly, with all things considered, I'm not surprised. Like, she would rather have her son cheat to get a good grade instead of learning the material and getting better at English. So honestly, good for you for putting up with this in a professional way, because I think if somebody tried to ruin my college career, as well as come up with awful false accusations, I do not think I would have reacted in a professional manner. But in the end, you did exactly what you needed to do, despite this Karen acting incredibly insane. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for playing chess while my wife was in labor, about to give birth to our first son? Here's what happened. So my wife gave birth to our first son recently, and I would like to start by saying that I was very excited to have a baby, and I'm truly looking forward to being a father. My wife did not have any health complications or a particularly difficult birth, except for an ultra-long labor that took about 27 hours in total. She slept through a lot of it in the beginning, but as it got progressively worse, she started to get more uncomfortable. Since we had been in the room for a long time, I had started to get antsy. We both played on the Nintendo in the beginning, but she didn't want to anymore as the labor progressed. About 23 hours in, I started to play online chess on my phone as I held her hand through contractions. She was fine with it at first, but then she snapped at me and told me to put my phone away, so I did just that. Then she told me off for bouncing my leg and then drumming my fingers on the bed. I told her to stop yelling at me and to tell me exactly what she wanted me to do, which was apparently the wrong thing to say because she told me to leave and send her father in instead. Now this really ticked me off, and I told her that I was not going to miss the birth of my child. She said that she would call me back when it was time, but I really needed to leave as I was getting on her last nerve. So I went out and I went to where her parents were waiting, and I told her dad to go in. Now I was pretty upset because I wanted to be there to take care of her. My mother tried to make me feel better, saying that it was a vulnerable time and different women needed different things. We were called in when she was finally giving birth, and I got the baby while her parents comforted her just like we planned. Everything seemed okay again until her parents left and she asked if I was going to apologize. I told her that I didn't think I needed to, and that if anyone owed me an apology, it was her. Ever since then, she has been very annoyed, and she has also not been properly talking to me. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I think the way you were acting was completely out of line. Your wife is giving birth. This isn't her going to the doctor for a checkup. She's about to give birth to your first son, and here you are playing online chess on your phone. Like seriously, put the phone down and pay attention to your wife. This is not the time to be playing games all because you're bored and you feel anxious. You need to grow up and get your head in the game and realize what's about to happen. Like maybe you don't know how dangerous giving birth is, but guess what? Giving birth to a child is really dangerous. A lot of things can go wrong, and this is really stressful on her body. So yeah, you should have apologized right then and there. You should have said, I'm sorry for not being there for you, and I truly apologize for my actions. But instead, you want to act selfish and pretend like, oh man, I'm not the one with the problem. But seriously, in my opinion, I absolutely think you're at fault here, because your behavior and your attitude towards your wife when she's about to give birth was completely inappropriate and so uncalled for. And if anything, you are definitely the one that needs to apologize and not her. Am I the jerk for taking the family on vacation without my wife and stepdaughter? Because now they want to stay behind just so they can go to my stepdaughter's friend's birthday party. And at this point, I'm so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my stepdaughter is in high school and has a best friend that she's known since they were babies. My wife and I have 2 children together, and my stepdaughter's best friend has a birthday in December. Now, we are well aware of her birthday because we attend it every single year. This year, my side of the family planned to take a huge overseas Christmas vacation, which required us to ask the friend's mother for the party date. We planned and bought our tickets to leave 2 days after the party just so my stepdaughter wouldn't miss it. Well, Monday, my stepdaughter came home and told us that the party date was moved to accommodate some of her friends' family members who decided last minute to fly in for it. Well, here's the problem. The date was moved to one that was well after our departure date. So as you can see, this is the problem. For starters, we're not made of money, so for us to change the flight and hotel for our family will more than double the cost overall. And secondly, this will be a 2 weeks overseas trip, so I already had my vacation approved and I can't change it. If we fly out after the party, my vacation will be cut down to only a week. Also, I only get to see some of my siblings only at Christmas, so if I don't go this year, I won't see them again until next year. I mean, my entire side of the family planned our vacation around the party date months ago. My original solution was to tell her friends' parents to keep their original date since my family planned around their schedule, but my wife immediately shot down that idea. My second solution was for us to leave as planned, but change only my stepdaughter's ticket since she's on break and is old enough to fly herself. Well, my wife shot that down too, since she's also friends with the other mother and she wants to go to the party. My wife's solution is for us to just fly out after the party, but I do not like this idea at all because of the added cost and the lessening time. Our talk turned into arguments that lasted all week. Last night, my wife put her foot down and said that we're not missing the birthday party, to which I replied that she's not missing the birthday party. I told her that I'm flying out with our 2 kids as planned whether or not she's on the flight. That took our argument to the next level, to the point where my stepdaughter called me a jerk. So then I tried to ground her, at which point my wife said I couldn't because she was justified. So right now everything's a mess and I seriously don't know what to do. For starters, I don't think you're a jerk at all. The fact that your wife and your stepdaughter are saying, oh, let's just leave after the party, that in my opinion is completely missing the point. You spent a lot of money on these tickets. Why should you have to sacrifice your time all because this other family changed their date all of a sudden? Which, by the way, that was an awful thing to do. Like the fact that they changed that even after knowing that you scheduled your vacation around their stupid party, that in my opinion is so unbelievably toxic. Because here's the thing, I completely agree with the original poster. These tickets and plans and the hotels, they probably cost thousands of dollars. So to change them all overnight simply because these idiots changed their party date, that in my opinion is completely unreasonable. Like in my opinion, I think your wife and stepdaughter are completely wrong. And it's time to either face the music or find some other kind of accommodations. Because at the end of the day, this this is not the original poster's fault that the date changed. This is literally the other family's fault and their own selfish desires to have a different date, all because they wanted their family to fly in on a specific time and date. Like, they changed plans without consulting you first and completely screwed up everything for your plans and your vacation. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your wife and your stepdaughter are being unreasonable, and if they want to go to that party, then they are more than welcome to change their dates of their flights and fly out just a little bit later to go on vacation. My mom is awful with money, and it's now at the point where she is constantly asking me for money, and she only seems to treat me like an ATM that she can withdraw money from. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So let me preface this by saying my mother has a heart of gold. She truly is my best friend in this world, and I would do anything for her. Now, with that in mind, I wanted to start off by saying I grew up experiencing homelessness more than once in my life. My dad was out of the picture due to him having substance issues and a criminal history. After living in and out of cars and hotel rooms, I got seriously sick of being broke. I looked at my upbringing and I said I'd never want to go through that ever again. So I got myself through school, undergrad, and now I'm about to graduate dental school to be a dentist. After a brief stint of being homeless, in 2014, which was my senior year of high school, my mom's aunt suddenly passed away. She left my mom everything she had to her name, including a home that was valued at approximately $400,000, as well as IRAs and other stocks. This drastically changed our lives. We went from counting pennies in the couch cushions to practically living like kings. The home was in a retirement community that had a minimum age to reside, and instead of keeping the house, my mom ended up selling it. She got laid off from her job and made zero effort to find a new one. She blew through all of the money, funding her expensive smoking habits of 2 packs a day, as well as buying expensive dinners and lavish Christmases. Suffice to say, we're in 2023 now, and she is flat broke. My older brother still lives with her and makes minimum wage. He too is extremely poor with money, going on random trips to random places in the United States just for fun. He has zero savings and just throws away whatever he makes for random trips and junk food. As I stated, I'm in my last year of dental school, and not many people know this, but dental school is more expensive than medical school. I mean, I stand at about $500,000 in debt as I type this. I have a $3,600 licensing exam coming up and a 1-year-old son to take care of. My husband is a foreigner from Asia, and in his country, saving is emphasized more than spending. I feel like in our American culture, spending is more emphasized than saving. His joke is that in his country, when you make money, you think, how do I save this? And Americans will think, well, how can I spend this? Obviously, this is a sweeping assumption, but this does kind of fit with the story. My husband makes decent money as an accountant, but we are definitely not wealthy at all. My husband does DoorDash to help make ends meet. He's incredible with money, and I'm so grateful to him for his patience and keeping me grounded through all of this. Now, my mom has continuously asked me for money, and I have none. I'm living on student loans, but have graciously given her money or just bought her some groceries. My mom always says that she can't wait until I'm a rich dentist that can help fund her life. My husband is fed up with her behavior, and honestly, so am I. And I finally got the courage to say no when she asked me for money. I just honestly don't know how it's going to be once I'm a dentist. I'll make decent money, but will have to live like a pauper for the first 10 years due to my high student loans. But my mom doesn't see it this way. She Googles the average salary of a dentist and thinks that I'm going to be swimming in money. She constantly says that she can't wait until I'm making good money. I'm just scared that she will see me as an ATM because having a kid is expensive, and I'd like to have at least some semblance of a chance at being a homeowner one day. Anyone that's been through something similar, how do you lay down the law? I am genuinely scared for when I start to make money. I mean, my mom is starting to sell her stuff, like her hair dryers and even her hearing aids. It makes me feel so angry and upset that she stopped working for a few years and hemorrhaged all that money with no backup plan. What should I do? Honestly, I think you just need to stick to your values and say, no, I'm not going to give you any money. Because here's the thing, it really seems like your mom is not going to get better about spending money. Like, she blew through $400,000 since 2014. Like, I don't know about you, but personally, if I had that much money in my savings account and I had that as a backup fund in some kind of way, I would have been way more careful about my money than the way your mom acted. She basically treated her bank account like an endless pit of money, and then finally, once present day runs around, she has nothing to account for, and she's still asking you for money. So it sounds sounds like there's a spending problem that she needs to figure out on her own. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would not give her any more money. I would tell her that unfortunately she's gonna have to get a job, or she's gonna have to find some other way for assistance, because her spending habits are a massive red flag. And if you don't put your foot down now, I can guarantee you she will keep asking for the rest of your life. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay $20 for my office Christmas party that I'm not even able to attend? Here's what happened. So my office throws a Christmas party every single year, and attendees are encouraged to toss $20 to the event planning team because they don't get funds for events like this. Now usually I do go, it's not a bad time, and there's usually Chick-fil-A as well as some raffles. But this year, however, I cannot go because I'm headed out of town that day, and I was planning to get on the road around the time that the party's gonna start. Now this is not a secret. I planned my PTO before the party was even announced, and I told the event team that I won't be around. I mean, I didn't even wait until the last minute to tell people. Well, now they're shaming me for not paying $20 for an event that I'm not even going to be there for. They're saying that it supports the whole office and saying that some people can't pay the $20, so I'm just being greedy. Now, obviously, I'm not going to lose my job over this, but it feels pretty awful to shame someone for not wanting to pay for an office party they won't even be in town for. So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to pay $20 for an office party that I'm not even going to be at? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, of course not. You are definitely not the jerk. Your coworkers are being selfish, and seriously, that's where this conversation begins and ends. And it's not like they don't know you're going out of town. Like, you literally made it clear to these people you're not going to be there, and you have other plans going on. So the fact that they would shame you for still not coughing up $20 just so they can fund their stupid party, in my opinion, is insane. Like, seriously, it's probably not going to be that good of a Christmas party if your $20 is going to make or break this thing in the first place. So if I was in your shoes, I would ignore these people and just keep on going about my day, because they are clearly acting very selfish as well as completely unreasonable. An entitled family comes into our cafe and makes an absolute mess and causes chaos all over the place. And as I'm trying to serve them, they make my life a living nightmare, even going as far as trying to get me fired once my manager gets involved. But thankfully, the gods of karma were on my side, as my manager decides to ban them from his cafe for life. And I've never been more satisfied watching an entitled family get put in their place. Here's what happened. So I worked in a few places, and currently I'm in a cafe, and I do some volunteering in some charity shops as well. So I mention that to say that I do deal with a lot of entitled people almost on a daily basis due to my workaholic lifestyle. Now, some small things which are annoying but happen quite often in a charity shop is where people try to use blue light cards in charity shops when we don't accept them. Now, I get it. You do a good job that helps people, but often doesn't pay well. But everything that we sell is extremely cheap. I mean, we had a lady try to buy Dr. Martens, which we were selling at $6.99, and she tried to use a blue light card. I explained to her that we don't accept blue light cards here, and usually the woman would let out that sigh to make it clear that she's annoyed with you, or make a comment about how ridiculous that is. But no, she instead insisted that we do accept it as every shop does, which is simply not true. Not every shop accepts it, which I do calmly explain to her, and after about 5 minutes of going back and forth, she finally stopped arguing and paid for the shoes that she was buying. Another small thing which is annoying that doesn't happen that often, but enough that I can say confidently it happens at least twice a week, is when a person, usually a man, comes into the cafe that I work at and orders multiple things on the menu and complains when it takes too long. I mean, I'm sorry, but ordering a stack of 5 pancakes, 2 chicken wraps, 2 large Cokes, several waffles, hash browns, sausages, baked beans on toast, not to mention the black pudding, does all take more than 2 minutes. These are annoying, and I could name even more that annoys me, but I can deal with those easily, and they don't bother me too long. Usually, once the person leaves the cafe or the shop, I practically calm down instantly, but what happened today, that is something that nearly made me quit working completely. It starts off as a normal day, but actually it's better than a normal day, as we had a calm day. There were not that many people, and just some small families with teenagers, so we don't have to deal with messy tables or little children running around and yelling. But eventually a large family came in, and there was a total of 8 children, and I would say the youngest was around 4 years old, with the oldest being about 7. Clearly, this wasn't all their children, perhaps a small party, though I doubt that it was. They asked for a table for 20 people. There was only 9 of them, so it was a little confusing, and I explained that we don't have tables big enough for a table of 20, but we have a table that can fit 15 people if they want that one instead. That table is usually booked, but it wasn't today. And trust me, I wish that it was, as they might have went to another cafe and bothered someone else. So while it was lucky for them, it was not for me, the other waitress, and our other chef. It took around 15 minutes to get all the kids to the table. The parents were not helping, and usually, if kids are running around, we do not do anything. But these kids were climbing everywhere. Some of these 6-year-olds almost made it into the kitchen if it wasn't for the entitled mother of this group yelling at them that they can't go into the kitchen, as they might supposedly poke an eye out. Now, bear in mind, we don't have anything around these 6-year-olds' eye level that would poke an eye out, but we do have a lot of boiling water, knives, and extremely hot stoves. So the whole kitchen is quite dangerous, in my opinion, for a bunch of 6-year-olds. But that is all the parents did to control these kids. So I decided to ask them and said, "Do you mind calling your children to the table, as they are causing a disturbance in the cafe?" They responded by saying, "There isn't anyone else here, they are fine. If you have such an issue with it, you can go get them back to the table." Now, I was generally very shocked at this. My coworker, who we will call Jess, was on her break, but she was kind enough to end her break early to help me get all these kids to the table. I am so thankful for that as well, because I am not good with kids. I only managed to get 2 of the kids back to the table, and she managed to get the rest back with ease. And once we got the last kid back, the one who had dirt on their face as he was digging up the plants, these entitled parents had the audacity to say something to us that honestly blew my mind. They looked at us and said, "Well, that took you long enough." Now, we do have a very strict boss who isn't in yet, so we didn't want to kick them out before our boss could actually see what was happening, because he would be on the customer side before even checking the security footage and checking with us to see what actually happened. So we just tried our best to bottle up how we were feeling and hope that our boss would come back in time to actually deal with them. Now, for the sake of this story, I'll be calling my boss by the name of Ross. Ross and Jess are not the real names of my coworkers. Now, according to Jess, as she worked here longer than me, she said that we only had one person kicked out and banned from the cafe, and they were not as bad as these people, so that got my hopes up that I will never have to deal with these people ever again. Now, let's skip forward a few minutes to when the entitled dad whistled me over like a dog. Now, I did make a comment about this. I said to them, "Please do not whistle at me to get your attention. You can call me by my name." He scoffed at this and proceeded to say their order. It was a large order, but it was expected for a large group and wasn't nearly as bad as I expected. I thought it would be more as they were being so rude, but I tried thinking positively that perhaps they had a bad day and they were just overwhelmed with all these bad kids. Now, this order had a lot, so Jess decided to help out the chef. We will call the chef Eric, also not his real name. Now, Jess isn't the best cook, but she only did the easy things, like boiling the eggs for him or even making the toast while he made the pancakes and waffles. During this time, I tried sitting at one of the booths not close to them, but I could see their whole table and I did keep a close eye on them. I thought this was a smart idea, and it would have been if they didn't need something every 5 seconds. They would say stuff like, "How long will this take? Are you allowed to be sitting down during your work hours? We need a new cup. These are way too small. There isn't nearly enough ice in my water. We want new cutlery. These are dirty." Now, I can confirm that they are not dirty, and they didn't even notice that I gave them the same cutlery back to them, as I knew that they were clean. And before anybody says that they might have dropped it or something like that, I had my eye on them the whole time to make sure they didn't cause any chaos, and the cutlery that they wanted to change was only the entitled parents' cutlery. Those were practically left untouched. They then started complaining and asking if the pancakes had any eggs in it, and they just asked that out of curiosity, not because of any dietary restrictions or some kind of like allergy. One of them then said, "Do you have a spare hairband? Mine broke." "Oh wait, I got one in a bag, never mind." And honestly, this was so annoying, and I felt as if they knew what they were doing, as once I sat down, every single time they would call me over in that annoying teacher's voice that made me want to rip my ears off my head. But despite all that, I kept calm, answered all their questions with a smile on my face. Now, here in the United Kingdom, we don't get tipped as nicely as Americans. Quite often, I don't even get tipped. So I did all of this expecting perhaps a small tip for dealing with them. It took around an hour to get all their food done. I mean, we wanted to make sure that it all comes out at the same time, and we made sure that it was all warm, but the eggs and toast for the parents were finished quicker than expected, so they came out 5 minutes earlier than the rest of the food. And it's right about here that everything everything broke out into chaos. The mom chimes in and says, "Where's the rest of the food?" I explained to them that they will be right out in just a moment. The mom said to me, "How long? Exact time, please. We are not mind readers." She then gives me that dirty smile that makes you feel so angry, as you can tell that they aren't being nice at all. I look at him and I say it should be just about 5 minutes. And I try to just laugh this off, as usually it works with the rude people that I serve. The dad then chimes in and says, "Why is it taking so long? We've been here for hours and you want us to wait even longer?" I say to them, "Well, the tickets say the time that they were printed. And I know you've been waiting around 30 minutes, but that is to be expected with 4 deluxe 5-stack pancakes and 3 deluxe waffles. And you did request all the food to come out at the same time, so we did try to time it, but your 2 meals just finished quicker than expected, so we didn't want it to get cold." Now, I did expect them to interrupt me, but they actually let me say all of this, so I thought they might understand that we are doing our job as best as possible and didn't want to serve them cold food. The mom then makes a really snide remark. She says, "You are a chef and you don't know how long it takes to boil an egg? Pathetic." Now, at this point, I am a little bit annoyed, but I'm still trying to be nice. I say to her, "I'm not the chef, and he just made one small mistake, and we are really sorry about it." The dad then chimes in and says, "You seem very sorry with that attitude." I respond by saying, "I'm sorry if I gave you an attitude, I've just had a long day." Now, for the record, I've not had a long day, but I need to stay calm, as I know that my boss will be back soon, and if I were to yell at them like I wanted to, I just know he would walk in and fire me on the spot. The mom then says, "We also had a hard day, but you don't see us being rude." The dad then said that he just wants the pancakes out right now. So I said, "Okay, I'll go check and see if they're done." I leave and I can hear them snicker and talking about me being incompetent and unable to do small tasks. But I started to feel as if luck was on my side, as once I got into the kitchen, I see Ross entering from the back at the same time as me. I explain everything as quick as possible. The pancakes were almost done and they just needed a plate. He was very understanding and told me to stay at the counter at the front and serve any new customers, and he will serve this family. And what happened next was honestly amazing. So Ross goes over and serves the family, and as he does that, I can see them complain, and I heard them talk even more garbage about me, saying that I'm so bad and that they need to replace me. Now, I could see Ross getting annoyed, but he was doing his job. He didn't put on his manager badge, and instead had another coworker's badge on, so I realized he was pretending to be a normal employee just so they wouldn't start acting differently, as he owns the cafe. When the food all gets there, the kids are extremely messy, even wiping their dirty hands from all the ice cream and chocolate sauce on the chairs, and these chairs had fabric on them and can easily be stained if left dirty. I saw the parents laughing at this and not telling them off and not even saying anything to the kids. Then I saw the kids starting to get up and run around again. Now, Ross already knows how bad they were when they first were running around, and now they're covered in food, so this really is worst case scenario. Before I go to stop them, Ross tells me, "That's my table now, I'll deal with it." So he goes over to these parents and talks to them. He says to them, "Tell your children to sit down, they are making a mess." And you know what? He got the same response as they gave me. And this is right when he says, "I'll get you your bill." At this point, I heard some arguing, because apparently they didn't want to pay yet or leave, so he explains how they are being kicked out as their behavior is making the cafe a mess and making people not wanting to come into the cafe. Now, this felt like one of those stories you would find online when they said, "You can't kick us out, you're not the manager." And that's when I saw Ross smirk. He said to them, "I am the manager, and you are being kicked out, and if you don't leave, you will be banned from ever eating here ever again." Me and Jess were watching and we loved this. If we had popcorn, it would have been perfect. They refused to leave for a few minutes, but they did end up paying. And when they were leaving, he yelled out, "You are banned forever. Never come back to my cafe ever again." My manager then swore at these people, and that's right when this entitled father turns around and quickly yelled out, "We have children, don't swear in front of them." Now, this is where I cut in and I say, "You were swearing in front of them earlier." Now, Ross did tell me off for this comment, but not in front of them, as he didn't want to make them feel as if they were in the right, as they were not. But they did argue with Ross for a bit, and let me just hit you with the highlights. They did not want to leave, they wanted a refund for bad service, but Ross was saying they pay for the food and did not tip, and since they ate all the food, they won't be getting any kind of refund. This scenario repeats over and over again until he threatens to call the police, and thankfully they finally leave. Now, he didn't check the security footage, but he said judging from their behavior, he knew for a fact that what what we said was the truth, which was very nice to hear. And honestly, I'm so glad that I never have to deal with them ever again. Wow, that story's insane. I seriously love it when a manager steps in and does the right thing. This could have gone really poorly if the manager was not on their side. I have definitely had managers in the past who have not had my back, and it's only made issues like this even worse. Like seriously, you're trying your best to keep your cool because you know you're not the person that gets to tell these people off or that gets to ban them from the store if they act up. But it's so nice when a manager sees exactly the way these people are acting because it makes your life so much easier when you're explaining that yeah, these people are acting up and they're acting like jerks the entire time. So good for you for keeping your cool as long as you could, as well as your manager for kicking them out because those people were being so disrespectful and they absolutely did not deserve to stay at your cafe. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My husband is very resentful of my career and basically is implying that he wants me to quit my job. And I'm now so angry and frustrated over his behavior that I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband has given me an ultimatum of sorts to quit my job. And at this point, I'm so confused on what to do, and I need a game plan when I fly home from a business trip in 3 days. We met and fell hard in love when I was in my escapist phase of my life. I was a high achiever with a graduate degree with lots of family pressure to succeed, but weary of the rat race. He was an artist, and he was smart, curious, and living cheap. Our first couple of years were blissful as we lived a more bohemian lifestyle, then went through a couple tough years as I supported him through grad school. But eventually we settled, married, and bought a small fixer-upper house with my grandma's inheritance, and we also had 2 beautiful kids. It was somewhat of a running joke that I'm the breadwinner and he's the struggling artist, but it didn't matter. We were best friends and he's a great dad. I mean, we were so happy. Because we have the freedom of not having a mortgage, life was pretty low pressure until we had kids and our expenses soared. With hindsight, I realized that part of choosing him as a husband was to rebel against my strict upbringing or to marry someone opposite to my father. Now, I accept those psychological components, and in another life, maybe I would be wiser to choose someone who's more compatible with me on a practical level. But now we are a family, and we still adore each other, and I don't believe that anyone is 100% compatible anyways. I am willing to put in the effort to make this work. Now, back to the story. I floated around different unchallenging jobs, but around the time that I became pregnant with my second, I got a huge opportunity in a startup. This involves managing accounts in many foreign countries and quite a bit of stress, but it is well paid and it's much more than we ever made combined. Plus, it's super interesting work. I get to work from home and pick up the kids at around 4 o'clock, even though I start early, and he has to take care of them in the mornings. Well, when I took this job, he was less than thrilled. It required him to stop teaching full-time at an art school, which he didn't love and was a poorly paid dead-end job anyways. We agreed that with our higher income, he could teach part-time, get a studio, and focus on his art, which is something he always wanted to do. And that way, he could be the primary parent in case a kid is sick and needed to stay home. And you know what? A lot of couples have this kind of arrangement when their kids are little. Generally, women are the more flexible parent, so the higher earner can focus on their job. From day one, this situation has made him unhappy, and it's just getting worse. He has felt so insecure and so resentful that he now takes it out on me. He blames me constantly for working too much, as well as being too stressed and not being available, and also not being supportive of him. And you know what? I have to admit, it's harder to be attracted to a jealous, insecure man. I feel like I've been extremely patient, trying to fill everybody else's needs, trying to end my workdays early to be with my family and not talk about work, and canceling almost all work trips for close to 2 years. But the harsh reality is that my job is stressful, my husband doesn't contribute financially, and I still do a lot of housework and childcare. And on top of that, he's incredibly unhappy. If I think about it too hard, I feel used and very angry. I think the deeper problem for him is that he feels like a failure in his professional work and takes it out on me. Last year, he worked with a career coach, and I thought it would lead to him applying for some jobs. But instead, he started a small business that is struggling to take off, and he used our savings to get that started. I just don't have the capacity to help him grow the business, even though he wishes that I could. He says that he feels unsupported and unloved. This month, I had to go on an 8-day work trip, the first I ever accepted with this job. It was decided well in advance, and I made arrangements for him to get help from a nanny, which I wouldn't hire if I was single parenting. I filled the fridge and freezer for him, and I left my kids heavy-hearted. And things seemed to be okay until the little one got sick one night and nobody slept. That morning, he told me on the phone that he couldn't live this way, that I'm not the person I was when we met, and that things needed to change right now. Basically, an ultimatum for me to quit my job. Now, I was sad more than surprised, but also angry at him for making me feel guilty about working to support our family. I could technically quit this cool job and find something less demanding. Like I said, we don't have a mortgage, which is a huge privilege in terms of financial freedom. We could live very frugally again like the good old days, and I would have to take the 1-year-old out of daycare and split his care with my husband. But it would also feel like he was dragging me down and not wanting me to be successful. And that's the part that makes me tick. Him not wanting me to be successful at what I do. I look at all my coworkers on this trip who also have young kids, and I know their partners are back home, understanding that this is just part of life and work. I don't know what to say or how to say it. When he tells me that he feels hurt, I feel sorry for him, but also very angry. I want to blurt out and say, get over it. Life is hard, get a job and grow up. But when I've alluded to that in the past, he has blown up and told me I should leave him and marry a lawyer or something like that. I'm just tired. I'm so tired. I just want peace. I want someone to recognize everything I've been doing to keep it all together. I want him to be happy, but I'm apparently never saying the right thing ever. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. It really seems like your husband's being super selfish. Like either he has like amnesia or something like that, or he is seriously forgetting all the work you do to keep this family afloat. Here you have a wonderful job that is like a career advancement in your life, and this guy's acting like it's the worst thing to ever happen to him. Like seriously, buddy, what is your problem? You're a starving artist who worked at an art school, and you don't make hardly any money to try and keep things going in the house. Your wife getting a job like this would be like the perfect opportunity to do something independent. Like, why does this guy seriously not see the benefit of his wife being the breadwinner? Because you know what? If I was in his shoes, I would be so grateful that my wife had that job. I would step up to the plate and do what I need to do to keep the family going. Because last I checked, this is a team effort. And according to the original poster, she stood beside this guy when they basically had no money and they didn't know what they were doing. So for the husband of this story to act like, oh man, this is such a burden on me, while also trying to run this weird pity party, in my opinion is completely pathetic, and he really does need to get over himself. So hopefully this all works out for you, and that this guy doesn't try to make you quit your job. Because right now you have a really good thing going, and it would be such a shame to throw it all away just because of your husband's insecurities. My entitled manager refuses to do his job ever, always finding some convenient excuse to avoid getting stuff done and leaving me with all the entitled Karens that wanted to talk to him. So I decided to get revenge when the district manager was at our store, and as a result, my manager ended up getting fired. Here's what happened. So I once worked at a pharmacy chain. To give some idea of how long ago this was, digital photography was in its infancy. A 6-megapixel photo was state of the art, and 1-hour photo processing was in its heyday. I worked in the photo department, which doubled as customer service and or the complaint department, and managers had to do all refunds since it required a key. The problem was that most managers didn't enjoy having to put up with a typical customer who wanted refunds and would often try to put it off if there was anybody, customer or otherwise, they could possibly help. Now, I owe that job a certain debt of gratitude, as it taught me a lot about how to deflect blame from yourself and instead send it to people who are higher up in the chain of command, which is usually where it belonged. Anyways, one day the PA system decided that it was being too quiet when employees used it to page, and suddenly any announcement we made was loud enough to be heard at the fast food drive-thru next door. And I'm guessing that a software update of some sort went sideways. I managed to figure out within a day or so that holding the phone backwards but otherwise speaking normally when paging would result in the PA system producing a more reasonable volume, as opposed to trying to find the right distance and vocal volume worked. Well, I shared this with my coworkers, and it became the new norm for paging announcements, and thus began my reign of terror over the management team. Now, nothing had changed about their lack of enthusiasm in handling refunds, but when they tried to pretend that I didn't exist, I would pull out my trump card and play it against them. And basically, I would say something like, do I need to turn this phone around and page it? Because trust me, I'll do it. It was usually enough to convince them to stop ignoring the angry Karen and quickly finish up with whatever they were doing. One particular manager decided he was going to call call my bluff one day. He finished up with a customer that he was working with and came by to let me know that he was going on break, having waited for the refund customer to be about 20 feet away looking at something. I waited for the door to the employee area close, then I went over to the customer, who was a Karen through and through, and I honestly don't really blame the manager for not wanting to deal with her. And it was right then that I suggested she might want to plug her ears, because what I was about to do next is going to be very loud. I then followed through with my threat towards the manager, and I jumped on the PA system and I said the following: "Mr. Manager, please come to photos for a refund." The entire store went dead silent for a good 4 or 5 seconds. Even the music was quieted for a moment while the software parsed what I had just done to the PA system. The manager came out, did the refund, gave me the dirtiest look that you could possibly imagine, and then went back to take his break. Well, fast forward a few weeks and the PA system still hasn't been fixed. Other managers, having heard that I was in fact not afraid to follow through with my threats of using excessive volume, practically materialized from the ether, sometimes several at once, as soon as I made the page that I needed one of them to help a customer. But the one I actually did hurt the eardrums of, on the other hand, has not learned his lesson and is again taking his time and coming to my counter to issue a refund. And this is one of my regulars. It's not even the same customer. This manager lazily strolls right past the counter and goes straight to the stock room saying that he'll be back in a few minutes. I then let him know that I'm gonna turn this phone right around on him, but he says again that he'll be right back while maintaining his nonchalant pace. Now, what I didn't realize was that the district manager was at the store at the time. He overheard me saying that, and I probably turned pale when I saw him come out of an aisle and head my way. He asked me, "What did you say?" But he sounded more confused or curious than upset. So I explained and said, "The PA system only works right if you hold the phone backwards and talk into the back of the mouthpiece when you page. They will hear us next door if we page holding the phone normally, and I've got a customer waiting for a refund." Now, the customer tried to wave it off and be like, "Oh, it's all good, I can wait." But the district manager wasn't having it. He said that customers come first and that the manager is checking on something that he asked him about. The district manager then gives me the go-ahead. He says, "Call for the refund, and this time don't hold the phone backwards." So I decided to maliciously comply. I picked up the phone. I said to the customer, "You may want to plug your ears." Now, the customer thought I was joking, but did so anyways, but the district manager did not. I then said the following again into the PA system. I said, "Mr. Manager, please come to the photo department for a refund." Now, again, there was a stark silence. The manager came out of the stockroom, ready to lay into me about having used the PA system in such a way, as well as hurting his eardrums again. But he held his tongue when he saw the district manager scowling in his direction. He did the refund, the district manager apologized for the wait, all while staring daggers at the manager, and said he wanted to talk to him in the stockroom after the customer had left. I was amused to note that the manager didn't dawdle when heading to the stockroom this time, walking as fast as he could without actually running. The district manager took a couple of steps to follow, but then paused and asked me how long the PA system had been doing that. And after I told him it's been going on for about a month or so, he stated, "Well, I saw the fixed ticket for it a ways back, but I didn't realize that it was this bad. Don't worry, I'll escalate it." He then turned and followed the manager into the stockroom. Now, here's the craziest part about all this. The PA system was replaced before the end of the week, but so was the manager, and thus ended my reign of terror over the managers, though it made enough of an impact that they decided not to ignore refund pages after that. You know, just in case I or another photo clerk decide to find a more horrifying way of ensuring that they comply and do their job. Wow, that's an awesome way to get back at a manager. Like, seriously, that manager was not doing their job. They saw that there was a need, but instead of addressing that need, they decided to run away because they didn't want to deal with Karens. But like, sure, I don't think anyone wants to deal with an entitled Karen, but you are literally a manager. This is your job to take care of these situations. So honestly, good for the original poster for stepping up and getting this all taken care of. And obviously, I don't think you were trying to get anybody fired, but truly, in my opinion, if someone is not doing their job and that as a result is affecting your job, then that person absolutely should be replaced. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend is constantly talking to other women in our relationship, constantly allowing messages from his ex-girlfriends, as well as liking bikini pictures of women on Instagram. And after dealing with this for several months now, I'm finally at a breaking point and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I met each other in May of 2022 when I was passing by his city on on a trip. I was happily single for 5 years and not keen on a relationship, and he had broken up a 2.5-year relationship 1 year ago. We got along very well in our ways of thinking, as well as what we intended to do with our lives. He started messaging me every single day when I left his country and asked me to pass by his city again before going back to my country. So you know what? I did just that, and we had an amazing few days. Once I moved permanently to his country, again, he asked me to spend a few days with him in his city, and so I did just that. I later found out he saw his ex, and she stayed at his flat, where they lived together for a year, the same day that I left, and this was in the beginning of August. Well, he apologized and recognized he should have told me but was afraid of my reaction, but swore that nothing happened. She simply is from out of town and had nowhere else to stay. He also said that we are not boyfriend and girlfriend, but recognized after months that he was manipulating me to think that we were in a relationship. In the end of August, he came to the city I live in with his friends, and he would stay here for 2 weeks after his friends left with me. During this time, he confessed to having hooked up with someone he met at a party and pretended to be surprised by my being upset. Again, after months, he admitted he was wrong. On the 3rd of September, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and in October, moved permanently to where I am, where we live together. Now, during this time, many times things were really great, but there were some things that really rubbed me the wrong way. For starters, he liked bikini pictures of women on Instagram. Now, he does not see anything wrong with it, but stopped doing that because I do see something wrong with that. He also invited me to go to an art exhibition and omitted that the artist was his ex-girlfriend's current boyfriend. He also didn't tell me that his ex has a debt with him and they are constantly communicating about a payment. Well, yesterday, I went to use his computer for a meeting and he had forgotten that his WhatsApp was open. His ex, who's not the same one, sent him a picture and asked if she looked good. And it's obvious that she was looking for some kind of validation, but he not only said yes, he also said, "If you send me pictures like this and my girlfriend's around, you're gonna start World War III. She would say something like, "Why? Because of a picture?" But then he responded by saying, "She'll be jealous because my beautiful ex is sending me pictures." And she replied by saying, "Yeah, and you're responding." Then she mentioned the project my boyfriend and I are working on, and I saw they had a couple of messages above, but the rest my boyfriend had erased. He erases his messages just like any other piece of garbage person would do. I don't think I can get over his constant breaches of trust and his need for validation and keeping doors with women open. What should I do? Your boyfriend's a piece of garbage. I can't believe he's acting like this, and honestly, what you're going through is so unfair. Think about it. He's talking to a previous girlfriend behind your back, and he's calling her beautiful and pretty and all this other stuff, and he obviously doesn't see that this is a big problem. Like, he's pretending to be surprised when you're upset, as if somehow the problem's with you instead of him. Like, he's the one doing these things, it's not you. So for him to be willingly open to all this kind of like validation from other women he's dated, that in my opinion is super toxic, and you do not need that for a second. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would want my partner to value me instead of other exes that they've been with. And the fact that your boyfriend isn't doing that honestly is a complete shame. My parents have stopped talking to me after I got married and moved away. And after being so close to them for so long in my life, I feel like I don't even know them at all, as they have completely cut me and my husband out of their life. And after reviewing my options and trying to find some kind of solution, I am seriously now at a loss and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, I used to be incredibly close to my parents, especially my mom. This changed though when I got engaged in June of 2021 and things started going downhill with my parents. My parents seemed to be disappointed in the engagement ring I got, which is not a real diamond by the way, the type of wedding we were planning where only my parents were invited and we basically just eloped right there on the spot. Not to mention my husband and his family not being as well off. I mean, they seemingly had a problem with literally everything going on. During this time period, my parents' expectations were difficult to manage, and they often said rude things to my husband and now myself. Now, as a side note, but somewhat relevant, my parents are immigrants and started out with just the shirts on their back. Neither of them completed high school because they had to work. Growing up, we didn't have much, and my parents sacrificed everything they could so that my siblings and I could have a better future. Because of this, there was never an option for my siblings and I to be average. We were all pushed towards university and had to make something of ourselves. Now that my parents are in their 60s, all their saving and penny pinching has paid off in the sense that they have millions from investments. And this is mostly from real estate that has skyrocketed in value and generates income from rent. Now back to the unfolding of events. events, and during our engagement, my fiance and I decided we couldn't afford housing in our high cost of living city, mostly because renting and owning was way too expensive. We told our parents that we're going to move to someplace affordable after we get married, but if they want to help us stay near them, we need help with a down payment so that we can afford a mortgage. My husband's parents said no, but that they'll support us in our move, mostly because we would need an incredible amount of money to have a mortgage be affordable on our salaries. And when it came to my parents, they offered us one of their rentals at a slight discount. Now, we were happy with the options, but ultimately decided moving to a cheaper city was our best option. Plus, we didn't want my parents as landlords. But you know what? This was the needle that broke the camel's back. In June of 2022, we ended up getting married, and in August of 2022, we moved across the country to another major city that was much more affordable and had jobs in our industries. After moving, my parents slowly stopped answering my phone calls and my text messages. And when they did answer, they were short and didn't have many positive things to say. Typically, they would just ask when we were moving back. Well, fast forward, and it was in February of 2023, after trying to reach out and not getting callbacks, that I finally decided to stop chasing after them. And in return, they still to this day have not called me. I never expected them to enact a silent treatment, and this, I feel, has gotten really out of hand. My siblings have told me that my parents will never reach out to me, and they are incredibly mad. And I don't really know what I would say if I call them up, or even if they would answer in the first place. I'm not really sure how to mend this fence in my life, but my thoughts are to try and reach out so all this craziness can stop. I'm not sure what they would be receptive to other than me moving back. I mean, if an olive branch doesn't work, then I'm content to put this to rest and just try and move on. Wow, that's really petty behavior from your parents. First of all, based on the way that your parents act, I don't blame you for saying, you know what, I don't want you as a landlord. I feel like that would be an invasion of privacy left and right, and you and your husband would never have any time to yourself. Your parents seem like the type of people who would definitely cross all your boundaries and then act like you're the one with the problem when you get upset. So in my opinion, getting out of there and moving to a more affordable city is absolutely something that I would have done if I was in your shoes. Now, when it comes to the relationship with your parents, I think reaching out might not be a bad idea at all, because obviously you want some kind of conversation to come out of this. You want to talk to them and be like, hey, listen, let's figure this out and squash this beef. Because if you really think about it, the way they're acting is really unreasonable. Like, I just don't see a logical reason for them to cut you off entirely and act like, oh yeah, you're the problem child, all because you didn't want to live in their house and you didn't want to live in the same city that was already so expensive. So in my opinion, with all things considered, I don't think you did anything wrong by branching out and getting away from your parents. Because based on the way you're acting right now about you making your own decisions, I'm willing to bet that they would have cut you off regardless, even if you did live in their home. My elderly dad, who I've been caregiving for, is making my life absolutely unbearable. And now I'm in the process of trying to move out, and of course, he's making this process as difficult as possible. Here's what happened. So I've had issues with my dad's narcissism throughout my entire life. 3 years ago, my mom passed away unexpectedly. I was closest to her and my family, and we all miss her so deeply. Since her passing, I have stepped up to help my dad with meal prep, as well as general appointments for the last year. And I even ended up moving in with my dad to help him full-time as a caregiver. I gave up my apartment at the time. I had just gone to school to finish my degree prior to this, and basically put my life on pause to help him out. Now, here's the thing. I knew what I was getting into, because I had issues with him prior, because he is narcissistic and difficult at times, but I also knew that he was in a vulnerable state, having been in the hospital several times earlier in the year, and I thought it was the right decision at the time. He said he would give me $500 a month as payment, which I agreed to at the time, but looking back now, it wasn't nearly enough for the amount that I should have been receiving, for the amount of care I was giving. Several months ago, I told him I'm not comfortable with the amount of payment per month, and at minimum, I would need $1,100 a month. Now, this is still a very good deal for him, basically getting his daughter to caretake for him, essentially full-time for that amount a month. A lot of professional caretakers would be several thousand at least. It was an uphill battle. He fought having to give me that amount and thought that I should just be doing it without worrying about money. 2 months ago, after conflict over time was building up for me, I told him that I'm going to be looking for apartments again, and I want to move, and he will need a professional caregiver. At the time, he basically freaked out and was trying to get me to stay without directly saying that. He liked having everything done for him and didn't want a stranger in his home. I told him that this was my plan plan and that I was going to be looking at places. I also started to look at jobs. Things got put on hold after his health issues increased, however, so I had to pause my job search as he was having more immediate issues that I needed to take care of. The issue is that I've been financially dependent on him since I have moved into this place. Prior to that, I was in school and basically put my life on pause afterwards, and now it creates a very tricky dynamic with the money issue. I had been looking at some apartments recently, but finding it difficult to find one that's priced reasonably. Within the last few days, my dad has suddenly been asking me a lot about when I'm leaving and also telling me that he wants me to leave. I found this to be very strange, being that even when there was no issue recently, he's been trying to push me out the door. I feel that it's a control thing because he has a lack of control in his life with getting older and having health issues, that he's still trying to assert his authority and make it seem like he's having me leave instead of me leaving on my own. However, this has created a very anxiety-based dynamic for me the last few days. Obviously, he told me that if I don't leave by next month, he's not going to financially support me anymore. Obviously, I do want to leave, being that I originally told him this, but at the same time, I do not want to be pressured into settling for an apartment that's either too expensive for me to afford or that it's simply something that I don't like. It's very strange to me that he's suddenly trying to push me out the door and basically trying to derail my finances. I gave up the last year to help him and caregive for him, and he has no appreciation. I know that the logical answer is to obviously find a job right now, and that is what I'm trying to do, but the issue is that he is still expecting me to caregive for him in the interim before moving. I'm feeling very anxious as I don't like this type of pressure. I would honestly love suggestions about this. Trying to talk to him is increasingly difficult. He gaslights me, and he basically bullies me into submission more times than not. Yesterday when this was happening, he called me an idiot, he told me to shut up, he told me that he knows how I am and that I would never find a place if it weren't for him pushing me around. He has offered to pay for the first month or two of rent, but at the same time, I need time to actually find a proper paying job now without any kind of pressure. Now, like I said, obviously I more than anyone want to leave, but the issue is that he's trying to now push me out the door and act like he's going to kick me out on the street when I've been caregiving for him if I don't find a place within the next few weeks. What should I do? Honestly, this sounds like an awful situation. Here you are giving all your time and energy, and your dad is basically taking advantage of it. And now that you're trying to move out, he's trying to gaslight you into thinking that he's the one pushing you out the door. So honestly, I really feel for your situation, and hopefully you're able to find something soon, because the way your dad is treating you is so unfair, and I don't blame you for wanting to move out. My entitled mother makes my life and my sister's life a living nightmare, treating us like garbage while also leaving for 2 weeks at a time without any kind of extra food or electricity to get us by. And now, despite the fact that I feel our relationship is completely destroyed, she is now demanding that I forgive her outright, as she believes that she deserves forgiveness no matter what, despite the fact that I know that she has not changed. And now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk or not for still being mad at my mother and the way that she treated me. Here's what happened. So 2 years ago, my mother started dating a man, despite expressing our reluctance to meet him because she was a serial dater and we did not want to get attached. They forced the situation, making my sisters and me very uncomfortable. Shortly after, he began staying over regularly, and my mom's personality changed significantly after meeting him. And this guy would also make disgusting comments about my mother in front of us, and she would just laugh. Well, about a year ago, they came home after a date, and I, busy with a timed online university assignment, just shouted out hello from my desk. 20 minutes later, with not a word to me or my sister, I heard the outdoor gate slam and them leaving just as I finished my assignment. I went out to check what was happening, but they were already gone. 10 minutes after they left, my sister and I received a horrible voice message where my mother accused us of being disrespectful and ungrateful and how we do not want her to be happy. She also accused us of not greeting either of them when they came inside, but we both absolutely did. She left for a week and a half, leaving us with 4 days worth of food in the freezer and no money for electricity or any way to get my sister to school during this week. And she also didn't tell us when she was going to return. She wanted us to apologize for being brats and not greeting them before she would consider coming back to the house. When we finally talked, she insisted that we were disrespectful for not dropping everything and meeting them at the front door to greet them when they came back, and also that neither of us greeted them in any kind of form, which again, this is not true because I did and I heard my sister greet them as well. They are the ones that didn't respond. beyond, I mean, the house was so small, so it's impossible that they didn't hear us. Mind you that this subject was never broached previous to this incident, and in all my years, my mother never required us to greet her at the door like a butler. The power was running low as well as the food, so we bit the bullet and just apologized, even though we clearly were not guilty of what she's accusing us of. I mean, my sister was still in high school, and I was in my first year of university, so neither of us had the financial capacity to keep a household running. Also, during this talk, I informed her that our relationship would never be the same. Well, recently, my mother questioned why our relationship remains distant, and that's when I reminded her that I had warned her about the lasting impact of our argument. Trust in her as a reliable parent was shattered, and I couldn't simply forget the 2 weeks that she abandoned us, all based on false accusations. While she urged me to move on, I emphasized that she created this distance, and I couldn't force a connection that no longer existed. Well, she called me a jerk for holding this over her head. She says that she's still my mother and deserves forgiveness, but despite her being my mother, I believe that the trust has been irreparably damaged, and she's given me no indication that she's changed. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Should I just forgive my mother as it is, instead of demanding that she apologize first? What should I do? I do not think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, I don't blame you for feeling distant from your mom. She literally betrayed your trust and your sister's trust. She left for 2 weeks, all because you didn't greet her at the door like a butler, which by the way, I've never heard of anybody ever having to do that. I bet it was probably her stupid boyfriend who was trying to convince her that she deserves way more respect. I mean, this guy already makes disgusting jokes around you. It's honestly not past me that he would try something like this as well. So truly, with all things considered, I do not think that you're the jerk in the slightest, because your mom's actions and the way she treated you and your sister is completely inappropriate, and I don't blame you for feeling distant. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen demands to see a patient during a COVID shutdown, completely ignoring our protocol in the process and making a massive fuss over something that was out of my control. Here's what happened. So this happened during COVID in 2022 when all hospitals were not allowing any visitors. I worked in a rehabilitation hospital, and we were the only hospital in the valley that was allowing window visits. The patient will stay inside while the friends and family will be outside, and they would communicate by being on the phone. It was just something that we tried to do to help the patient have more support being in rehab. I was the main person of contact and the one who had to wheel the patient downstairs and back up. I was also the person who gives a small orientation to patients when they first arrive. To give a background of how the window visit works, we did first come, first serve, and it's 30 minutes each session. We went by time slots, which is something that I would explain to patients and family. Preferably, this would be scheduled 2 days ahead of time, or if not, 1 day ahead of time before 1:00 p.m. The schedulers are always working on the patient's therapy schedule for the next day, so they usually want any notifications about blocking out a certain time frame by 1:00. Patients are aware of needing 15 hours of therapy and a 7-day grace period. So once the schedules are out, they try not to do any cancellation if necessary. So far, I haven't had any issue with any family members or patients. They are pretty good about giving me a week notice for the time and day. This particular patient was admitted in the evening, so I went in the next day and gave the patient orientation and explained about the window visits. I reminded the patient about making sure to call me at least a day ahead of time if the family wants to have a window visit. The patient said they understood, and the next day, the patient's son called my office wanting to make a window visit for the next day. I made the arrangements and explained to him about the rules again, and he said that he understands. At this point, it was now 2:00 p.m., and I suddenly got a phone call from the receptionist. She tells me that a family member is here for window visits for that patient. Now, usually when I have window visits, I send out emails to all nurses in charge, as well as therapy managers, schedulers, and the receptionist, just so they are informed and are in the loop. Well, I looked at my booklet, and I saw that there wasn't anything put down. I looked at the patient's schedule and saw that she was in a therapy session anyways, so I told the receptionist that I'll come downstairs upstairs to speak with a family member. I get downstairs and I'm greeted by a lady. I said hello to her and she tells me she wants to see that patient for window visits. I apologized and informed her that she wouldn't be able to see the patient, while further explaining that she has to call to make an appointment ahead of time. Well, as you can probably imagine, this lady got mad and told me, "Are you guys a prison? You guys are treating my in-law like a prisoner." So I told her, no, we are not a prison, but these are protocols to keep people safe. Not every hospital is even offering this to families and friends, and that we are the only hospital that is currently doing this. Plus, this is so we can protect our patients, employees, and visitors. Well, she huffs and keeps calling us a prison, and that this is unfair. I then asked her and I said, "Didn't the patient's son already call this morning to see the patient tomorrow?" She then looks at me and rolls her eyes, stating that she can't do tomorrow, and that this is why she's here today. Well, I apologized again, and I told her that the patient is in therapy anyways, so she will not be able to see the patient. Plus, what if another patient's family is doing window visits right now, or that we are booked for the day? And I already explained the rules to the son too. Well, the lady still called us a prison one more time and said for me to just bring clothes to the patient and then finally left. I then came to find out that the lady was the wife of the son who called me this morning. And I swear some people are just so entitled. I know that everybody wants to see their family during this tough time, but that absolutely should not be at the expense of other people. Yeah, that lady was completely out of line. Like, does she want to get COVID? I don't know about you, but that's not something I want to toy with. I mean, unless she wants to join the sick ward herself, then she honestly needs to go at the scheduled time and just deal with it just like everybody else. Like, seriously, the patient had already scheduled a time. They had time tomorrow where they could have a window visit. So for this entitled Karen to run up and be like, "No, I want special treatment. I want to see them right now no matter what," that in my opinion is super weird and honestly so incredibly unacceptable. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for yelling at my cousin all because she behaved so poorly at my party? Here's what happened. So I'm a 28-year-old male and I yelled at my cousin's sister who's 24 all at a party because she started mocking me during my party. Now for a bit of context, my cousin was such a kind and sweet woman before she went to university. We are fairly religious and we try to resolve things in a peaceful way. I'm kind of the odd sheep in the family as I have anger issues and I've been controlling it after it nearly shattered my 4-year relationship. After my cousin joined university, she got mixed up with some ideology group and started behaving kind of oddly. And oddly as in she just wouldn't take anything from anyone, and she would also get highly offended by the smallest things. When the elder ones in our family used to joke about her behind her back, we as cousins never criticized her for anything. But lately, she is trying to be the center of attention during every single event, either by putting bizarre makeup on or by engaging in a debate which ends in a huge ruckus, which takes away from the attention. Fast forward to a week before, and I was hosting a small party with close friends and family as I was about to start my own venture, and things were going well until I started my speech, because of course there she was, countering everything that I was saying. Now I am pretty nervous when it comes to public appearances and all of that, but I memorized a short speech which my wife had prepared. I held up for as long as I could, but I lost my cool all of a sudden after hearing her murmuring and saying that I need to be careful because you're saying big words which you might not be able to handle. I finally bursted out and said some very bad stuff which I now regret. She started raising her voice, and as I understood that I had definitely messed up, I stood there clenching my fist and just started saying sorry over and over again. But even through all of that, she just kept on shouting. My wife even held me and told me to calm down while my cousin was still shouting. I was shaking at this point and I almost went into a rage. My wife called off the party and I received plenty of text messages the next morning. Every single message said, "You knew she's like this. You shouldn't have behaved so recklessly." Now my wife had not seen me like this in a long time, and now she only speaks to me when needed. But now I feel like a complete jerk, and I now seriously don't know what to do. I do not think that you're the jerk in this scenario, and the fact that anybody who attended that party could even begin to side with your cousin is honestly beyond me. Like, she was completely out of line. She was talking over you in the middle of your speech, essentially trying to pull focus away from you just so she could be the center of attention for some weird reason at your party. Like, it sounds like you had some kind of like new job or some prospect in your life, and this was supposed to be your send-off for this new adventure. But instead, your cousin stepped in and literally ruined the moment. Like, that was honestly so uncalled for, and there was no reason for her to act that way. Like, is it really that hard to sit still and not interrupt someone in the middle of a speech? speech? Like, I don't know about you, but I could do that all day. Now, obviously, to get it out of the way, you probably should have avoided her and just not invited her at all to your party. But then again, that would have been really difficult to do, and I think it's probably safe to say that your extended family would probably turn on you if you didn't invite her, and then she would come to the party with a chip on her shoulder ready to really make a ruckus. So truly, with all things considered, you are definitely not the jerk in this scenario. I know that if I was having a speech like that and someone ruined the moment just to try and argue with me over what I was saying, I would probably lose my cool as well and tell them to get out. An entitled couple treat me like garbage as I'm trying to check them out at Walmart, and after listening to them say awful things to me over and over again, I finally decided that enough was enough, and I stood up for myself for the first time ever at that job. Here's what happened. So being 16 and working at Walmart was never meant to be glamorous, but dealing with entitled parents definitely took the cake. I still remember the day that Karen and Kevin, as I like to call them, decided to make my life a living nightmare. It was a Saturday afternoon and the store was buzzing with activity. I was manning my checkout lane, trying to keep up with the influx of customers and making sure I scanned everything properly. And that's right when I saw them. The Karen, who is a woman with a perfectly styled blonde hairdo and a face permanently contorted in an expression of disdain. And then also in walks the Kevin, her equally entitled husband, sporting a beer belly that strained the buttons of his Hawaiian shirt. They approached my lane with a cart overflowing with groceries. They unloaded it onto the belt with a sigh of entitlement. Their faces were saying that they were above this. As I scanned each item, Karen kept interrupting me with demands for price checks and special discounts that didn't exist. Meanwhile, Kevin stood there with his arms crossed, occasionally grunting in agreement with his wife's complaints. When it came time to pay, Karen reached into her purse and pulled out a wad of cash. She slammed the bills onto the counter, scattering them everywhere. She said to me, "There, you can count it." I patiently gathered the bills and started counting, making sure to double check each denomination. Now, as I expected, there was a discrepancy. The amount she had given me was several dollars short. I began to say, "Ma'am, it seems you're short a few dollars." This Karen's eyes narrowed and she said to me, "What? Nonsense, I gave you the exact amount." The Kevin then chimed in and his voice was in a low growl as he said, "Yeah, don't you dare cheat us, kid. We know how you teenagers like to scam people." I felt my cheeks burning with anger. Here I was, a 16-year-old working my minimum wage job, trying to do my best, and they are actually accusing me of stealing from them? So I said to them firmly, "No, I counted it twice. You're missing $7.50. This Karen let out a gasp, clutching her pearls in the process. "How dare you accuse us of lying?" The Kevin then stepped forward, his face inches away from mine. He said to me, "We could settle this outside." But I stood my ground. I may have been young, but I was not afraid of them. I said to them, "I am not going to argue with you. Either pay the remaining amount or I will call security." Now, the mention of security seemed to have a sobering effect on them. The Karen huffed and dug around in her purse, eventually pulling out the missing money. She slammed it onto the counter, her face a mask of fury. "Here, just hurry up and finish this so we can get out of this dump." I finished scanning their groceries, my hands trembling slightly, and as they stormed out of the store, Kevin muttered something under his breath about teenagers these days. Now, I sank onto a chair behind the counter, feeling exhausted and drained. Dealing with entitled parents like Karen and Kevin was a constant reminder of the ugliness that existed in the world, but it also made me stronger, more resilient. It taught me to stand up for myself and not be intimidated by bullies, no matter how big or loud they might be. That day at Walmart was a turning point for me. It was the day I realized that I wouldn't let anyone, least of all a couple of entitled parents, walk all over me. It was the day I found my voice and I learned to stand up for what is right. Good for you for standing up for yourself and not taking this garbage that they were trying to throw your way. They were very clearly trying to get you all flustered and try to intimidate you into making some kind of mistake so that they can get off scot-free and possibly have a discount. I mean, why else would they be screaming and crying about getting a discount or some kind of like special offer that doesn't exist? And this is all over $7.50. How can you seriously be that entitled where you are completely blind to the fact that this is not that big of a deal? So truly, with all things considered, I'm so happy you decided to stick up for yourself, because these people were clearly up to no good. Today, I messed up by ruining two sisters' relationship with each other after I secretly dated the both of them without telling the other one exactly what was going on. And now, as a result, their relationship has fallen apart, and I am seriously counting down the days until I can disappear from their life and never have to deal with this mess ever again. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that I take full responsibility for this, and I know that I messed up, so honestly, do your work worse, because it can't be any worse than how I'm feeling right now. I was, and probably am not anymore, friends with this woman for a couple of years. We met through mutual friends, and we'd both be at parties that they would throw. She's been dating a guy off and on since I've known her, so I always thought of us as just friends. I did feel like it'd be nice to be in a relationship because we seemed to vibe really well, but I never asked her about it. That fling ended for good this past summer, and I started getting text messages from her more often. Not like every day, but definitely a spike in activity. In hindsight, I should have cleared the air with her and asked if we were just friends or something more, but I didn't. I met her sister once about a year and a half ago, and then I saw her again this past Thanksgiving when a group of us went over to her family's place. Her sister and I also clicked, and I will admit, I felt like she was someone I could see myself dating if she was open to it. And I felt this way more than the younger sister. Now, I didn't tell the older sister that straight up, but I did ask if she would like to grab a bite sometime, and she said yes. So we did that a couple times. And you know what? We didn't even do anything together, if you know what I mean. We didn't even kiss. We were always in public spaces, and I thought about broaching the subject, about being a thing on the next 1 or 2 outings, but that definitely did not happen. Today, I got a call from the older sister, and the younger sister somehow found out that we went out and blew up on her sister, accusing her of using me as I paid for both meals, and that we were spending quality time together, which is just not true. Now there's a ton of fallout between them because I did not make my intentions very clear. I not only lost a valuable friendship, but I also drove a wedge between these two family members. What's worse is the older sister's uncle just passed away, and now she has to deal with all of this on top of prepping for the funeral. And while all of this did just happen, I am certain that I'm out of this friend group entirely. I've been trying to call my friend and try diffusing this, but I have not been able to reach her at all. And I really will try to smooth things over before walking away from these people's lives. Like I said, I feel like the biggest scumbag in the world, and I truly wish that things could have gone down much differently. Yeah, this is definitely a massive mess up. Here we have the original poster who decided to date 2 people in the same family without telling the other person that they were doing that in the first place. Like, I don't know about you, but that was definitely a really bad idea. Like, what did you think was gonna happen in this scenario? Did you think that they would be okay with this and they would somehow be super okay with you dating the both of them at some point? Like, I don't know about you, but if I knew that these 2 were siblings, I would not try to pursue some kind of dating situation with the other sibling without talking to the one that I was dating first. And sure, I get it. All of this did move very fast, and you very clearly found yourself in the crosshair of some kind of family drama that, trust me, from the sounds of it, it has nothing to do with you. Situations like this have probably happened all over the place between the 2 of them, and I'm sure that you are not the first guy to find themselves in this scenario. So I think moving forward, you can at least understand what you learned and try to never do that ever again. Because I am positive that this is a situation that you absolutely do not want to find yourself in ever again. My entitled neighbor is constantly stealing my packages, and anytime I approach her to try and get it back, she constantly denies ever having it. But justice and karma was on my side, as this time when she stole my package, she was shocked when she opened up the package and let loose a giant tarantula into her house. And as a result, she comes storming up to my house, begging me to get the giant spider out of her living room. And I've never felt better about exposing my thieving neighbor in my life. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female and I'm a hobbyist. So as such, I order additions to my collection that are delivered via post or courier. Now, my entitled neighbor who's 28 years old, she moved into her house roughly 3 months ago with her 9-year-old son. I was close friends with the people who lived there previously and had them listed as trusted neighbors to deliver packages to if I'm not home. Since she moved in, I have changed that with the postal services, but unfortunately there are a few delivery people who have not had the information. Sadly, I have had a few parcels delivered to the entitled neighbor's house, and when I've gone to collect my parcels, she has denied knowledge or has given me an already open package and used the excuse that her son accidentally opened it. So last week, I had a delivery coming with several special additions to add to my collection, and I decided to work from home to make sure that I received the package. I started work at my usual time of 9 o'clock in the morning, and having double checked that my doorbell was set to its loudest setting, I went ahead and I got to work. Now, I have a tendency to get absorbed into my work, so by the time I realized that it was 12:30 p.m. and my package was supposed to have delivered by then, I started to worry. The first thing I did was check my emails to see if I had been notified of a delay. My heart sank when I saw the message saying my package had been delivered to my selected neighbor. So I left my house and went straight to my neighbor's house house to knock on her door. When she opened the door, she gave me a look that said she was definitely not happy to see me. I looked at her and said, "Hi, I just got a notification that my package has been delivered here. Can I please have it back?" This entitled neighbor then looks at me and says, "There's nothing here." But I responded again and said, "I was just emailed by the courier service that they delivered it to your address. Can I please have it?" Now, at this point, the entitled neighbor was obviously getting pretty angry. She then said to me, "I just told you there is nothing here for you." Now, before I could even ask her again if I could please just have it, she literally slammed the door right in my face. I was obviously annoyed and decided to knock on her door again, and I waited, but she completely ignored me for at least 10 minutes. Feeling frustrated, I went back home and called the courier service, wanting the delivery person to come back and make sure I got my package. I was on hold for quite a while before I finally got through to somebody, and just as I was telling the service operator what was happening, my doorbell rang several times. Then there was repeatedly loud banging coming from my front door, followed by the bell again. I asked the operator to hold on for just a moment while I checked out who was at my door. I opened the door and my entitled neighbor was standing there. Her face was very red and her son was crying. My entitled neighbor then said something that honestly I kind of expected. She said to me, "There is a huge spider loose in my house because of you." Also, yes, I collect tarantulas. I collect true spiders and a lot of other inverts. Now, at first, I was scared that my neighbor had harmed one of my new tarantulas, but I just couldn't keep the sarcasm out of my voice. I said to her, "Oh, so you did get my package after all." My neighbor then starts shouting, "Yes, and now there's a huge spider in my living room. You need to get it out of my house right now." So I closed my door and I talked to the operator who had literally heard everything. Now, since I had already told them what was in the package, they were laughing down the phone. I told them I'd have to go to rescue my spider from the crazy Karen. So I grabbed my catch cup and paintbrush from my spider room and I opened my front door again. The entitled neighbor was still standing there looking furious, and her son was now completely sobbing. I look at them and I say, "Okay, show me where it is." The entitled neighbor then says, "I hate you so much." But I simply couldn't help but smile as my entitled neighbor took me into her house and showed me to her living room, where my package was on her floor next to a knife that obviously been used to open it, as well as the container that the tarantula had been shipped in. Thankfully, the tarantula was simply hiding under her sofa, and I was able to get it come out with my handy paintbrush, and I caught it in the catch cup. I put it back into its shipping container, then picked up my package. The entitled Karen then said, "Finally, now get that thing out of my house. It terrified my son, and I'm arachnophobic. Don't you dare get any more of those things." And when she said that, I finally lost it. I said to her, "Excuse me? You're the one that opened a package of mine even after I came to collect it." Now, the entitled neighbor looked at me shocked. She said to me, "Yes, well, my son likes to open packages, and I thought it was another one of those gadgets that you get. He loves to play with them after all." Now, at this point, I just started laughing, as she obviously didn't realize that she just admitted to stealing my previous packages. Now, for some context, I work for a company that sends me product prototypes all the time. So I finally turned the conversation on her, and I said to her, "So you have been stealing from me. I swear if you ever open one of my packages again, I'm getting the police involved, and I'm having you charged with theft." Before she could say anything else, I pushed past her and I went back to my house. Thankfully, the tarantula was unharmed and was happily settled into her new enclosure. Since then, I've contacted every courier service in my area and demanded that they never leave anything at her address ever again. Now, there has been one incident where a package from work was delivered to her, but as soon as I knocked on her door, she just handed me the unopened box and closed the door right in my face, much to her son's disappointment if his yelling was anything to go by. So the moral of this story is don't open someone else's package, because you might just get a giant spider in your living room as a result. Yeah, that would be pretty good motivation for me to never touch my neighbor's package. If I knew they had some kind of like spider or tarantula in there, I honestly would never come anywhere near their package again. I am super afraid of spiders. They just freak me out. So if I took my neighbor's package, opened it, and found that sitting in a case, I'm pretty sure I would freak out and run out of my house. Like, there's no way I'm gonna face that. So honestly, good for you for getting your package back. And also, good for you for exposing the truth, because this neighbor was very clearly stealing from you. And that kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My family refuses to allow my my boyfriend to come over for Christmas and refuses to give me any kind of good reason why. And right now, I feel like my relationship is on the line and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Ever since I brought my boyfriend over to meet my family, my siblings have been super awful to him and have campaigned with my mom to exclude him from family events. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. He hasn't been over for Easter and Thanksgiving, and I stayed home this year for Thanksgiving because my mom said that he was not invited. Last year, he wasn't invited for Christmas either, and when I went alone, he was very hurt by that, and it caused some division between us for a short while afterwards. My father, however, was very disappointed that my mom and siblings could not accept the fact that our family was growing and that it would inevitably grow. I can't explain why my siblings don't like my boyfriend. He is such a friendly person who has never said or done anything wrong to them. My brother has never been in a relationship or lived away from home, so I feel that he has some kind of weird attachment to my family and its traditions. This past Thanksgiving, my mom said that even though my boyfriend wasn't invited, despite the fact that my sister's boyfriend was, she promised that Christmas would be different and I would be able to have him over. So I went ahead and I invited him. Well, yesterday over a phone call, I was checking in to make sure he was coming home with me, and she admittedly told me no. I then reminded her that she promised that he could come over for Christmas, and on the verge of tears, she kept saying no, and that it would make my brother and sister very upset. I told her that I wouldn't be coming home, and she proceeded to yell at me over how I'd be ruining Christmas for everyone if I didn't show up. And now I'm in such a difficult position. If I go to my family for Christmas without my boyfriend, it would likely ruin our relationship because he was so hurt last year and he wouldn't feel included by my family. I would also have to uninvite him, which is extremely rude and frankly unloving. But if I stay with him for Christmas, it would conversely ruin my relationship with my family. As far as I know, an invitation was extended to my sister's boyfriend, but not mine. I don't understand why my mom and siblings can't accept my boyfriend as part of the family. I don't know how to negotiate with my mom to allow my boyfriend to come home with me. I spoke to my dad as well last night, and he said it's up to me to change her mind. And I don't know how to do that because she is such an obstinate lady, with my brother and sister unwaveringly immature about it. What should I do? Okay, this story blows my mind for several reasons. For starters, why is your sister's boyfriend allowed to show up, but somehow your boyfriend is not? Like, that is seriously such a case of double standards, it's not even funny. So it leads me to believe that somehow they just don't like you being in some kind of relationship or something like that. I mean, for context, you're 34 years old, so I'm willing to bet that this relationship is kind of a make or break moment for you. And personally, if I was in your shoes and I wanted this relationship to work out, I would personally make the decision to stay with your boyfriend. Because here's the thing, your boyfriend very easily could become your husband. Like, you could possibly marry this guy in the next few years, you never know. And in my opinion, setting up this kind of precedent where you're like, okay, well, you were invited, but now you're not. And by the way, I'm gonna spend time with my family for Christmas. Doing anything like that again for Christmas this year would be so insulting. And I mean, your mom even promised that he could come over. She literally told you, yeah, he can come over this year, only to then be like, sorry, can't do it. Your siblings are gonna be upset if he comes over to the house. Like, last I checked, this is your house, correct? Like, you get to decide who comes over and who doesn't, right? Why are these siblings, who are similar in age to the original poster, by the way, deciding that the original poster's boyfriend can't come over, but her sister's boyfriend can come over? Like, what's the difference here? Because in my opinion, there is no difference. Like, it really seems like the siblings off the bat were like, yeah, we don't like your boyfriend. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't even seem like they've given him a chance in any kind of way. Like, that's the part that bothers me probably the most, because he hasn't even done anything for them to justify this kind of behavior. It literally doesn't make sense, and this seems like a very intentional attack against you and your happiness. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, if they really want to deny your boyfriend from showing up on Christmas Day, then there is no way I'm gonna show up either. I would tell your mom straight up that the both of you are a package deal, and if your boyfriend can't be allowed to show up, then you're not gonna go either. Because the behavior of everybody involved in this situation is quite literally extremely immature, and it doesn't sound like they have a good reason in the slightest as to why they don't want your boyfriend coming over for Christmas. I lost my engagement ring at my friend's house, and she is now unwilling to let me look around her house just so I can find it. And now I'm so distraught, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I met my friend in 2019 at a job that neither of us work at anymore. For the sake of this story, I'll call my friend Amy. Amy is not her real name. Now, Amy and I were instant friends. We did everything together. After we both left that job, our friendship definitely became much more distanced. We were still friends, we were just not hanging out every day. Every now and again, Amy would call me up to recruit me to help her with a party or some chore that she had to do. And you know what? I always jump to do it because I like her. I love helping my friends and being that person they can rely on when they need something done. This past October, I married my husband, and he would always mention that it seemed like Amy takes advantage of me, and he knows if I were to ever ask her to help out, I wouldn't get the same effort back. And he's probably right. Although Amy is kind, she is very scatterbrained and chaotic, and at times socially unaware. I know she has some issues, so I gave her a lot of slack. However, it got to the point where even my best friends would point this out. I did ask Amy for help with my bachelorette party with her helping decorate, as she owns a lot of party supplies and decor. However, she ended up showing up 2 hours late, and my two best friends ended up having to help me pull it all together. She was apologetic though, and even showed up with a lovely, thoughtful gift. This past week though, my perception of her has changed drastically. She said that she needed help painting her basement and bedroom. So I took off work and I came over to help out, as she had waited until the day before she would have new carpet put down. I spent nearly 12 hours helping her clean, move things around, and paint the walls. I didn't mind though, because I wanted to help, and it made me happy that she could rely on me. Now, I'm very careful with my rings, and I always zip them up in a pocket of my purse. And this time was no different. As we were working with paint, I decided to take them off and zip them up in my purse. I did not touch or open my purse again until the next day. So I woke up and I got my purse, and I went to put my rings back in their box where they stay when I'm not wearing them. And that's when I noticed that my engagement ring was not zipped up in the pocket with my wedding band. I emptied my purse and even cut the lining of it to see if it somehow magically slipped in it, but nothing. I couldn't find anything. I thought to myself, okay, maybe I did open it and I unzipped it and it fell out somehow. So I then searched my entire car, even taking out all the seats just to look for it. I called her a couple of times and got no response from her at all. I left her a message, figuring that she was sleeping as she was up late painting or something like that, and a few hours later she texted back saying that she had just woken up. She said the carpet layers were there and that she could not go in and check to find my ring. She did retrace the steps I took to my car but found nothing. I called her crying and begging her to look around and ask the workers. She did show them a picture and let them know to keep an eye out. However, I do not know the workers and therefore cannot trust their integrity. There was also another girl who was helping us, and I know her but not that well. But she has in the past admitted to some petty theft, and while it wasn't anything big, it basically made me realize that I can't trust her integrity either. Shortly after our call, I saw on her Snap story her and this other friend messing around most of the day. She said she looked all the places that she could and maybe it was in her desk. I then asked if I could come and look, and she said she was too tired and I could come look another time. She said her house was in chaos and it would need to be unpacked to be properly searched. I was very disheartened and I let her know I was very anxious to find it. I reached out several times over the course of 4 days and got very little response, and she showed a massive lack of concern. Meanwhile, this entire time, she's posting Snap stories of just hanging out with friends. Now, obviously, I don't expect to spend 24/7 looking for it. However, if it were me and she lost something, I would be very willing for her to come over and help search my house from top to bottom until we found it. After several days of little response or willingness to let me come look, I sent her a text telling her that she obviously did not care that I lost a prized possession. And she responded a day later saying that she does care, but again, she has little willingness to give me an actual update or to invite me over to her place, even though on her Snap she had several friends over helping her unpack. I do trust that she did not steal it. However, I don't trust her friend or the workers. I feel if it did somehow fall out, it was probably found and pocketed. I know for a fact I had it zipped in the pocket of my purse, and I did not even open it as my phone and keys were in my jacket pocket. It's been nearly a week and I still have very little news or any kind of update. She has said that she has been keeping an eye out, and I just feel after spending 12 hours cleaning and painting for her and all the other times that I've helped her out, I have not gotten a single shred of that effort in return. I debated giving her a piece of my mind, but I was holding out hope that she would somehow find it. Just knowing her though, she has likely not put in any effort to look, and her house is probably still in absolute chaos. And at this point, I have given up hope that she will even find it. Now, my husband was kind and understanding, and as a Christmas gift, he has ordered me an exact copy, and I'm very grateful for that. I just feel like this was her chance to show up for me, and I'm very disappointed, and my heart aches for this moment. I love her to pieces. She's hilarious, she's sweet, and she's really fun to be around. However, she is disorganized and a bit self-centered at times. I've been urged by my husband and friends several times to minimize all contact with her even before this incident. I know at the end of the day it is my fault, as I should have double-checked my purse before leaving. I just have built the habit of zipping them up in the pocket. I feel like a total fool, and I've been kicking myself for losing it. I wish she would just allow me to come over and look. It's honestly been so frustrating. Do I hold out hope until she finds it? I am ready to cut ties, but I feel if she just found it, I feel much would be forgiven, but I just know that she won't. I mean, should I cut my losses and accept that she will never find it? And if so, should I just cut her off now instead of holding on to a silver lining of hope that my friend will show up for me for once? I really love her and I value her, and I would hate to lose her friendship over something like this. I mean, how should I approach my friendship or the loss of said friendship? What should I do? How on earth can you possibly view this person as your friend? This Amy lady has been using you since day one. Like, your husband and your friends are right. She does not care about you in the slightest, and she's been using you for free labor literally since the beginning. And here's the thing, maybe you just don't see it from your side of things, because you do like to help people out and be reliable for people around you. And in my opinion, I think that's a fantastic trait to have in your life. There's nothing wrong with being charitable and willing to help those around you, because I think the world would be a better place if more people were like you specifically. But here's the thing, it really seems like Amy keeps you around, or even contacts you in the first place, is because she views you as free labor. She doesn't see you as a friend. She sees you as someone who will do whatever she says, while doing it with a smile on your face for free. Like, you really should have listened to everybody else around you, because this situation that you're in right now, this was inevitable when it comes to Amy, because she will never show up for you. She uses people. She doesn't help people. She, of course, called you up so that you could come over and help her paint and move stuff and all this other garbage. And when you came to her saying, hey, I need your help for once in your life, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she's suddenly so busy. She is suddenly so busy that she can't even have you come over to her house just so you yourself can find your engagement ring, because her life is so chaotic right now. She's unpacking stuff and it's just utter chaos over here, which, by the way, is just another lie, because she's literally going on Snapchat and posting all these stories, basically proving that she's not only not looking for your ring, or she knows where it's at and she probably already sold it. Because maybe you don't want to hear it, but the real reason that she does not want you coming over to her house is because she probably has your ring and she most likely is trying to find some way to sell it. Like, that, in my opinion, based on everything you've described, that is exactly what I think is happening. It's either that or you really did drop it and one of her friends found it and they're the one that's selling it. Because you have it right. If Amy for some reason decided to come over and help you paint your house, and then she called you up and said, oh my gosh, my ring is missing, you would let her over in a heartbeat and you would start the biggest search party on planet Earth. Like, I'm convinced that you would do everything it would take to make sure she got her ring back. And that in and of itself doesn't prove that you're a good person and that you like to help people out. If anything, it would prove to me that you didn't steal the ring. So the fact that she's not willing to put the effort in to find your ring, or just to let you come over and take a look just so you can have some kind of peace of mind, that, in my opinion, is a clear sign that Amy's playing you, and she most likely played a role in your ring going missing. So in my opinion, I think it's time to cut Amy out of your life, because she 100% does not care about you. And I think you would be a complete fool if you tried to keep this friendship going. My entitled mother is demanding that I schedule a C-section instead of giving a natural birth, so she and my dad can schedule a time specifically to see me and my daughter. And I'm honestly so upset and frustrated by their entitlement, as well as my entitled mother practically trying to push me in this direction when it comes to how I'm gonna give birth to my child. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I am due to have my first baby in just over 5 weeks' time. My pregnancy was a surprise. weeks, and it's been a difficult 8 months thus far. Although low risk, I've experienced every symptom you can imagine, from intense morning sickness to migraines and carpal tunnel syndrome. I've also faced some pretty intense discrimination at work, despite maintaining a high rate of performance throughout the entire year. All of this is to say that it's been a very rough year overall. I've had little support from my family this year, and their nonsense has seemingly known absolutely no bounds. Since around May, they've been asking my partner and I to make the 10-hour drive interstate for Christmas so that we could spend it with them. Now, this would be fine, but my doctor has repeatedly told me not to do this, as I will be 36 weeks along at that point, and I'll be prone to blood clots. Despite all of this, they've continued to pester my partner and myself about it. At one point, they proposed coming to see us for Christmas, but then swiftly shut down their own idea when they immediately realized that it would be an inconvenience for them. Recently, my dad was diagnosed with some health problems of his own, which he's been told is completely treatable with surgery and some medication. But regardless, I've called every other day to check up on him just to see how he's going. In the last few weeks, my mom has started telling me how awful birth was for her, as well as every other woman on both sides of my family. I kid you not, every time she calls, she encourages me to plan a C-section and then drops some new detail about a relative who had a traumatic birth experience of some kind. I have told her that her comments are unhelpful, and she has known for months that I don't want a C-section if I can help it. She constantly says things like, if I had my time again, I would plan a C-section, as if it's somehow an easier option. I wondered why she started down this path until she started making comments about Dad's treatment plan and appointments, where she would say stuff like, we might be able to make it out to see you for a few days in January, but Dad might have to go to an appointment on the 18th and then again on the 31st. And then after that, we can't visit for a while because Dad might need a surgery. I then snapped and told her that I would not and could not plan the birth of my child around their schedule, and that they should not bother coming. They haven't even asked my partner or myself if we even want extended family present directly after the birth, which guess what? We definitely don't. I was so scared about the birth and was starting to feel somewhat uncomfortable with the idea of it all when my mom started making these comments. Every time I've told her that I'm upset about their comments or their lack of normal, healthy support, my mom has told me that I'm just hormonal and that everybody else has their own thing going on. I'm just so sick of their garbage and I'm ready to cut them off for some time. I feel like they've made the birth of my little girl all about them. They've compared the potential surgery my dad might need to my birth, talking about catheters and IV drips, like how I won't need a similar setup, particularly if I go down the C-section route. When they did come to visit earlier in the year, they made comments about what I was eating. Mind you, I was 24 weeks pregnant at this point, and one of my supposed unhealthy options was a few chocolates after dinner. Now, I don't even know what to say or even what to do. All of this has made me reflect on my childhood, and I can't help but feel sad about that as well. I've spent the last few weeks just crying about it all, and I'm so tired of venting about it to my partner, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, it sounds like your mom and dad are being super toxic, because it really seems like they're trying to make you schedule this birth in a way that's more convenient for them instead of what's right for you and the baby. And that is just so crazy to me. Like, seriously, how self-centered and selfish can people possibly get? Let me try and spell this out basically. Your mom is only asking you to get a C-section so that she can schedule to see your baby when she wants to. She wants you to do it that way so it benefits her instead of this being better for you. And you know what? I'm willing to bet that any of these problems she's talked about in the past, where other mysterious women in your family have had trouble during birth, I bet you all of that's a lie. It really sounds like she made all of that up just to try and convince you in some kind of like roundabout way that scheduling a C-section is the only way to go about doing this. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be telling your mom exactly how it is and state straight up that no, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say, but instead I'm going to listen to my doctor. Because in this case, that's the only person you should be listening to when it comes to how you would like to give birth. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend of 12 years was caught red-handed flirting with a coworker, and now after talking it over, we're going to try and make our relationship work a second time around. And I truly hope that this relationship is worth saving. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old male and I've been dating my girlfriend since middle school. We recently graduated from university, both with good career paths, and have been living together for 3 years. My girlfriend started working July of this year and had a fairly rough start. She became friends with this older guy by the name of William, who's been working there for 10 years, and they kind of hit it off as coworkers. William also is not his real name. They started texting each other a bit outside of work around September because he was having marriage problems and wanted someone to talk to. Now, I really did not mind it at first and thought that it was nice of my girlfriend to be supportive. But today, while trying to update a game on my girlfriend's computer so that we could try and play a game together, Messenger opened with a startup and I couldn't help myself but to snoop just a little bit. Apparently, for the past few weeks, she's been flirting with him fairly explicitly. William even sent her a picture of his torso to show off his abs, and my girlfriend answered that she would jump on him the next time they saw each other at work. The vibe I got was that it was just banter, but it still had some inappropriate connotations. Well, when she got home from work today, I confronted her about it, and that's when she admitted that she has a crush on her coworker, but she never did anything physical. She never intended to and thought the flirting would just fizzle out after a bit. She told me that she's really sorry for what she did and that it was completely selfish of her to only think about herself during these events. Well, I felt deeply hurt by all of this and I packed up my things. She tried really hard to stop me from leaving, but I just couldn't stay. I couldn't believe that she would disrespect the 12 years we've committed to each other, all so she could flirt with some married man who has a wife and a kid. It got really late and I had nowhere to go, so I booked a room in a hotel near work. I couldn't bring myself to go back home to my parents because I know they'll never let me see her ever again if I told them what happened. A part of me really wants to give her a second chance and meet with her tomorrow, but I don't know if I'll be going back to a relationship that's already been soured. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster actually has an update to this story. Here's what they had to say. First of all, I want to thank everyone so much from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to respond to my original post and giving me advice. I honestly don't think I would have survived the weekend without you guys, and I think I owe everyone who took their time with me an update. So here's what's currently going on. Now, I don't think this is the choice that many of you think I should be making, and I don't know myself if I'm making a huge mistake, but this is what I've come to terms with. I'm going to give my girlfriend a chance to make things better, and we're going to try rebuilding things from scratch. I want to take some time together and get to know each other as if I'm getting to know this person for the first time, because she is clearly not the person I thought she was. If it works out over the next few months, then that's really great, but if not, then I'm fully ready to end things on good terms. After I left home on Thursday night, I stayed close to work over the weekend because I was working Saturday. I decided not to go home to my parents because I don't think it would have been a good environment to think about everything objectively and try and reflect on myself. I did spend some time with a few close friends, and they've been nothing but supportive. I owe them big time, and I'll have to take time to thank them properly when things get better. During the weekend, my girlfriend did reach out to me, but I decided not to answer back and really take some time before I said anything. On the first day after I left, I was mostly consumed by anger and frustration. I hated myself and my girlfriend. I hated the guy that she was talking to. I didn't know how I could possibly move past this. I even started having panic attacks. But on the second day, the anger kind of melted away and I was mostly just sad. I was disappointed that things turned out how they were, and I really experienced with every fiber of my being just how hurt I am. On the third day, surprisingly, I felt calm and somewhat came to terms with how things were. I tried to look at things as coldly, as objectively, and as honestly as I could. To my surprise, I did not feel for a second any relief for being away from the relationship, and I was actually thinking really hard about what could be done to make things work. I felt like I was in problem-solving mode rather than a vindictive mode, which really helped me realize I still care about her. I tried to make it as clear to myself as I could about how understanding I'm willing to be with my girlfriend and what I need for myself to be comfortable again in this relationship. I made a list, I talked to a few other people online who shared similar experiences, and I scrutinized myself with the pros and cons. I think, and I could be wrong here, that I might be sadder not being in this relationship than being in it while trying to cope with all of this, if that makes any sense. I finally decided to see her, talk to her, and see where it goes. I wanted to go into the meeting with no intentions of getting back together, just to give my girlfriend a chance to make things clear on what she thinks, what she wants, and what she's willing to do. do? And honestly, she pretty much said all the right things. During the time that we were apart, she had already quit her job. She says she's staying until the end of the month as a professional courtesy to her boss, but in the meantime, she has completely cut contact with William. She deleted her conversation with him and plans on blocking him once she can be sure that she won't be contacted anymore for work-related things. For the remaining time that she will be working, she will only be sharing about 3 hours a week of shift overlap with William. She made me believe that she was remorseful and very self-critical about what happened. I also brought up wanting her to come clean to the wife. She was reluctant a bit at first, but did not push back when I told her that I would think better of her if she did. She currently has no means of contacting the wife, but she told me that she will do everything she can to get it done. We talked for hours, we went to get some food, and we talked some more. Maybe I'm just really good at gaslighting myself, but I've become more and more understanding of what put her in the situation. By no means am I justifying that what she said and did was right. This still is the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life, and I don't know if I will ever forgive her for this, but everything that led up to it made sense to me. Now, hear me out if this makes sense to you. First, we are the only romantic and love interest we've ever known growing up, and she has been more than good in this relationship up until this point. It is only normal for her to be a little more curious, right? I know I've thought about things too. I was just never stupid enough to act on it because I know the value of what I have. Secondly, her entire university and college experience was completely squandered by COVID, and she never made any friends in her field. She never went out to parties, she never hung out with her classmates, and she never even went to school for 3 of the years of her program. She was never a very social person, but she never had a chance to mature and discover herself socially. I was lucky enough to be in a program that was small and had to be present through COVID. I can tell just how much I've gained from my time at university. Lastly, I have to admit, I wasn't perfect in the past few months. When she started working, she was under a lot of stress, and to a certain extent, I wasn't as understanding and supportive as I should have been. I wasn't attentive to her needs. And on a completely side note that shouldn't even matter, I did put on some weight since I started working. At work, she thought she was making a friend in her field for the first time since she started working by talking to William. And when she told him about the stress she was going through, he was a lot more understanding of her situation than I was. I mean, I can honestly not blame her for feeling this way. Now, I don't do what she does for work, and I cannot claim to have done a good job of understanding what she goes through. She made it clear that she initially just wanted to make a friend, regardless of how clueless and naive it may sound. How things fell apart from there, she is aware was entirely her fault. It was all rooted in selfishness, and she was looking for self-validation and gratification. I definitely can't accept any excuse for that, and she couldn't come up with a more structured answer for now. She never did anything physical, and she would like to think that she would not have crossed that line if it got to that point. Whether that's true or not, we will unfortunately never know. But for now, I think I believe her enough to just sit on it. After our long discussion, she showed that she was supportive of me focusing more on myself moving forward, where she would have to put in effort to be the glue to hold us together and overall make things right. For the next few months, we are planning to take some time away from everybody else and just spend time together talking, going to therapy, and just figuring things out. I told her that I wanted the both of us to be as truthful as we could with each other, regardless of how much it might hurt the other person, because I want to know where the bottom is before attempting to rebuild anything at all. I am fully aware of how trying and painful the next few months or even years are going to be for me, and I honestly don't know if we'll make it past this, but I think she's shown enough for now for me to want to give it a try, and hopefully this all works out in the end. That's a crazy situation, and you're very brave for taking her back, because I know if that was me, there's no way I would be that forgiving. Like, the two of you must have a very good connection, otherwise I just don't know how this could possibly work out. But for the sake of your relationship and everything that you have planned, I really do wish the both of you the best, because I really think this is gonna take a lot of hard work, and it's going to take a lot of honesty from the both of you. Am I the jerk for having a private wedding, and as a result, causing my mom to lose all of her friends in the process? Here's what happened. So me and my now husband wanted to have a small wedding that only consisted of our immediate family and best friends. Our wedding of 8 guests, including our parents, happened in my apartment living room just so we could save for a house in Europe. I made sure to keep my wedding a secret because I didn't want the stress of handling other people's reactions, since the usual wedding in my circle is extravagant. And when I say extravagant, extravagant, I mean something that's on the roof of a skyscraper or at a high-end resort and hotel. Now, for a bit of background, I went to the same school from elementary school to high school, and the moms of our batch made a friend group and still socialize to this day. I didn't really keep it hidden from my mom that I was bullied by a great chunk of the batch for most of my years there, so my mom understands how I would prefer to keep the wedding very small instead of being selective and hurting someone's ego. In school, the people who openly bullied me stopped when one of them stood up for me in middle school. And ever since then, we became really good friends and she attended my wedding. 2 girls were transferred in after and didn't bully me, and also became my best friends and were invited to my wedding as well. And I consider all 3 of them to be my maid of honor. Well, we finally posted the wedding and lunch party to social media, and my mom's group chat was filled with surprise. I was the first in my batch to get married, and sadly, there was less of a congratulations and more of angry people expressing betrayal because they were not informed about my engagement. They expressed that it wasn't congruent to their best friend getting married without getting invited or even informed at all. I felt confused by this because these people were neither my best friend nor was I best friends with their child in school. Nevertheless, I told my mom to use me as the excuse to dampen the fire, as I, the bride, wished for this secrecy and not my mom. But they instead insisted that it shouldn't have mattered because a mother's decision trumps a daughter's. After my mom's attempts to reassure them, they turned to painting me as the opportunistic narcissist who only cares for herself since I didn't inform them of my wedding, and for using my maid of honors for an extravagant wedding, which was far from the truth. A selective group of the parents in my mom's friend group started pitting fights between my maid of honors and myself by personally messaging my maid of honors. When that didn't work, they pitted my maid of honors moms to each other, which unfortunately somehow worked. My mom, being overwhelmed by all of this, blocked the people fanning the flames. They took this as evidence to show how the apple doesn't fall far from the tree and how easy it is for my mom to throw more than a decade of friendship down the drain. Since I moved to Europe with my husband, my mom is now isolated. My father's busy with work, and my brother is busy abroad studying. I feel awful when I video call her, and she seems depressed seeing her closest friends now scared to even reply to her chat. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for having a private wedding and thus getting my mom shunned and outcasted by her friend group, all because I didn't want to inform or invite her friends to my wedding? What should I do? For starters, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Listen, this is your wedding. If you want it to be a private affair, then guess what? That's exactly what it's gonna be. And anybody who doesn't like that for some weird reason, those people can honestly get lost because they literally have no say in what you do or don't do for your wedding. Like, from the sounds of it, these people that are friends with your mom, they sound like the people who like to pretend to be your friend, but only when it benefits them or makes them look good. And I bet you they only wanted to be at the wedding or even just pretend to want to be at the wedding so they could either look good or, in this case, just try to make a big fuss about it. Like, I'm kind of convinced they're just perpetual complainers and they're using this as some kind of excuse to start drama. Because you said it best, you don't even like these people and all of their kids were awful to you besides like your 3 maid of honors. Like, why on earth would you want the moms of your bullies to show up to your wedding? I mean, if I got treated like that growing up, I probably would want something private as well. Like, there's no way I'm gonna be bullied all throughout my childhood and then be expected to play nice with these people when I finally have a say in what happens. So to that respect, I completely understand where you're coming from with having a private wedding. It really sounds like the people around your mom are not her friends, and their behavior is just further proof that they just don't care. And if anything, it proves that your childhood bullies learned this stuff from their moms in the first place. I mean, look at what they tried to do. They tried to pit you against your maid of honors. They tried to involve everybody else's moms. They seriously tried to rip you and your family apart, all because they were not invited to your wedding. So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. And if anything, I'm just so glad that you had the wedding exactly the way you wanted. Because based on the way these people are acting towards you having a private wedding, I really think it was for the best that you decided to keep them out. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.